Apologies for being a couple of minutes late, and apologies for my voice too. Just noticing the TV. Yeah, there might have been some football on tonight. Apologies. But it's finished well. It's finished positively. It looked terrible, but it's the result that counts. Anyway, that's not why we're here. I apologise, especially to any of the followers that are out there watching from Greece. Vasilis, my friend, I'm thinking of you. This is not going to be a session tonight on the OSWAs. Around the OSWAs, because what the OSWAs show to us is things that are in vogue, zeitgeisty things, exciting things, new things, things that we love and things that we feel are good and popular and should be celebrated. But they are a finite thing. There's only 6 spots available in each of the 9 categories, 54 spots in total. So it means that not everything can get through all of the time. And what that means every year is that there's some things that we notice, and we're very sensitive to it as a whiskey-loving community, that we feel like we're left out in the cold a little bit. But I think it's interesting. And I think that sometimes, even although the sample set is very small, you can draw some observations, not necessarily conclusions from those things. That's what we're going to try and do tonight. We're going to kind of look at things that are happening in the orbit of the OSWAs, things that might not have made it through. Looking forward to it as always, and I'll see you in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Thursday night. Welcome to the vPub. Apologies for me taking my eye off the ball and not really getting into the zone and focusing on the kickoff of the vPub tonight. The football, it's international football right now. Obviously, it's World Cup qualifying campaigns. Scotland were in action tonight. I'm very grateful that they managed to scrape a result. They didn't scrape a result in the end. It looked like they were going to potentially, maybe a best scenario, scrape a goal, but they ended up winning 3-1. How did that happen? Well, hopefully, if you didn't watch the game, you can pick up some highlights. It was, despite a poor performance from Scotland, it was the result they needed against a really strong and organised, athletic-looking Greek team. That's my excuses over. I'm here now and I'm focused on you. I realise that when I've been shouting at the TV, I've lost a wee bit of my voice tonight, but there's enough of it there to get us through the vPub. I hope you'll forgive me for my tardiness and my distraction as well. Now I get to relax with you guys and focus. We're going to be talking about all things Online Scotch Whisky Awards tonight, but not the actual awards themselves. I'm quite happy to do an Ask Me Anything type scenario. If you've got any kind of gripes, everybody always has gripes. The OSWAs are the gripe generator, you know, despite the kind of the mission behind it and the kind of grassroots thing and the earnest side of it, the honesty, the transparency, despite it all, you know, it's not going to be, nothing can please everyone all the time. And what tends to happen is that I can get a wee bit distracted and focus on the negative stuff and the gripes and things like that. That said, you know, it's all grist for the discussion mill, right? So I can field any questions or whatever you've got about the operation, what's behind the OSWAs, how it works, or any of those types of things. But we've done that in the past, and not enough has changed in the OSWAs in 2025 or even 2024 in order for me to dedicate even a chunk of the vPub to that, let alone an entire vPub. But I think the results, the nominations, for me, the most exciting part of the OSWAs are the nominations each year. I always find it fascinating, and it always throws up discussions. Every comment section, every social media post is at risk of somebody coming on board and airing their displeasure. Usually, sometimes at what's listed, but usually at what is not listed. So I think it's valid for us to take that and not focus on talking about the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, but to talk about the bigger things that are happening in whisky, the kind of wax and wane of whisky, the dynamics and the changes that we see in real time as we are enthusiasts wrapped up in the scene of buying, maybe arguably buying too much whisky, all of these things. Certainly enjoying whisky, enjoying it with our friends, and feeling how things are changing. Choice, selection, availability, certainly price, but more than anything, flavour, engagement, quality, those types of things. The OSWAs, I think, are a very narrow sliver, I'll grant you. It's nothing, it's just a sliver. It's like a letterbox view of some things I think that's happening right now in 2025 in whisky. And I think it's an interesting topic. And I've got some bottles here to use as props. There will be one or two that I can actually open tonight. How many am I going to uncork? I'm going to be uncorking at least 2 bottles tonight. Good bottles. Bottles that I'm honestly surprised I can uncork with you, because you would consider these strong contenders to appear in some form or fashion in the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, but for whatever reason, in 2025, they haven't made it. Some of them I'm surprised by. I've become a bit more pragmatic about the OSWAs. I understand that I can't get my results through. I can't get the things that I put forward through. I can't get the things that I vote for the nominations through. I'm just part of a much, much bigger machine, and I don't get my own way. And I've gotten quite used to that now. And I've kind of taken a backseat view of things now to look, just to kind of view things and see how they're happening. But before we get into all of that, I'm going to hope that my throat and voice holds out tonight. And I'm going to jump into the lounge and welcome some of you beautiful whisky folk and dedicated barflies. Congratulations, Scotland, and welcome everyone. Cheers. Scroll up a wee bit so I can pick up some of the orange. If you're trying to get my attention, type Aquavite or @Aquavite, and I can pick up your comments. Jean Kelly saying, hi, Roy. Wonderful barflies. Here for the beginning, but must check in at a work function. Catching the rest on replay. Good luck on the quiz at the end. May there be many tens. Jean, I'm not sure. Are we going to see you in November? I'm not sure if you're coming across this year, buddy, but thanks very much for checking in with us. And now that you're here on the replay, Jean, welcome back, my friend. Whisky Weekend Dram. Harrow's saying, good evening. The Netherlands won from Malta. Aquavite, boring game. The other game in our group was Denmark against Belarus, and I think the last I heard it was like 6-0 or something to Denmark. So it's going to be an interesting game at the weekend as well. Sorry, I'm getting distracted again. Fernanda's saying, hello, evening, Aquavite and Barflies. Hope you're all doing good. And Klitz is saying, good evening, Aquavite. Looking forward to tonight's vPub, which in my mind is officially titled, Wherever Did Glengyle End Up? You're already preempting things a wee bit, Klitz. Good to have you in, buddy. Petehead is saying, evening, barman. Great to have you behind the bar again. Thank you, Frank. It's nice to have you at the bar again. Hope you're comfy sitting there in the lounge. Kerben is saying, just relax. I'm happy to be able to attend so many excellent things at Glasgow Whisky Festival. I'll do a wee run through of that, I think, just to catch any stragglers. I think the job is done now. I think we've pretty much got everything booked up and filled up and ready to go. I should actually check that and keep that open and make sure the things are closed that should be closed, because that's dangerous. I can't overfill or overbook things. Okay, I've done that earlier. I was a wee bit organised earlier tonight. Herben, I'm looking forward to welcoming you in Glasgow, my friend. That'll be brilliant, buddy. Ben's always saying, thank you, Roy. That's Ben Demon Hunter, isn't it? He's saying, for helping me stay awake, Slantia with water at work. It's a pleasure, buddy. Does work send you to sleep? It's nice that you're able to tune in on the fly. Hoyt is saying football is a reasonable excuse. Thank you, Hoyt. Whisky Weekend Drama is saying boring match, but they had the time to make a new video. Fantastic, Harrow. What videos are you making, buddy? Lowlander is saying, in fairness, I think many of us were shouting at our TV screens too. I was shouting in disbelief a few points. I couldn't believe it was real, right? Chris Pollack is saying, can you talk about how many already voted? I think absolutely I can, Chris. I don't think that would be a problem at all. In fact, I think I've actually got it on my phone, so I don't even need to open up any extra browser windows. We were 4,444 last year. I've already predicted I expect us to be a bit lighter than that this year, but there's maybe some activity that we can do in a couple of weeks ahead to kind of generate, spread the word a wee bit more, remind people about it, and see if we can get more interaction with it. Let's see if I've still got this open. I bet I've not. Okay, let's let that refresh. We're at 1,600. We're just 1 or 2 votes away from 1,600 participants, and that's been Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So 5 or 6 days since it went live. Feels maybe a little bit behind on last year. I'm not really sure. I I think we were maybe a couple of thousand in the first week, but that's okay. What I'm noticing this time around, especially with the survey that we put out there, asking people about their habits and things like that, we're absolutely reaching the right people, and I think that's more important. You remember the theme of this year? Less is more, quality over quantity, right? So there you go, Chris. I hope that helps you. Ginger Genius is saying good evening, Roy, and all you lovely barflies. Good to see you, John. I hope you're keeping well, fella. And Sugar Kitty is saying drinkable props are the very best kind. Bottle props, absolutely. Jeff Whiskey is saying the OSWAs are the highlight of Whiskey Awards Aqua Vitae, and the awards for the drinkers, not the marketers. Jeff did a little kind of summary video about awards in general. Not a deep dive. It was just a kind of quick look at most of the most well-known whiskey award ceremonies and initiatives that are out there. So I recommend that you go along and have a wee look at Jeff Whiskey's video if you're interested in such thing. Just as the chat jumps, I'm going to scroll back up a wee bit just to see that I've not missed too much of you. Sorry. Sometimes you just touch the scrolling chat window and it resets to the bottom. I've never really worked out what it is that I do or anybody does for that to happen. Darren Agger is in saying good evening round the barflies. Darren, it's brilliant to have you, buddy. Good to see you. I think I'm right back to where I was left off. Dave the Brave is saying good evening, Roy. Congratulations on your win tonight. Thank you, Dave. Thank you very, very much. Are you down south, Dave? Dave the Brave? I think England were playing in a friendly tonight. Ryan Sutherland is saying hello, everyone. Hello, Roy. No work tomorrow, thankfully. Good news. We now have whiskey of our own at 8 doors. So looking forward to tonight's chat. Congratulations on getting over that line. It's one of the biggest milestones, isn't it, Ryan? That means that there's an even more credible excuse, let's say, for me to make my way up to the most northerly distillery on the mainland, right? Congratulations, 8 doors, and Ryan, cheers. Rolf is in. Good to see you, big guy. Saying evening, Roy. I'm enjoying a Daft Mill double single tonight in Aqua Vitae. Daft Mill, thank you, buddy. Hope it's going down very, very well. Dorpass Whiskey's in. Good to see you, Tim. He's saying cheers, Roy. And Bobby K's bought us a wee dram to say Aqua Vitae. Whiskey is life's way of apologising for Thursdays. Happy Thursday. Aqua Vitae Whiskey's life's way of apologising for Thursdays. Happy Thursday and cheers. I'll give that a wee like, a wee love heart. Bobby, it's nice to have you in, buddy. And thank you for your dram, my friend. Cheers to you. Andrew Red Sox is in here, saying evening, Roy. And Ian Williamson is saying evening, Roy, and all the lovely barflies. Looking forward to another vPub and should be able to stay for the whole evening for a change, maybe even for the quiz at the end. Get comfy, Ian. Fantastic. I think there's a strong chance that we're going to see some 10 out of 10s in the quiz at the end. Some of the questions are done well in advance. Some of them are done right at the last minute. But really, it's only before I go live that the 10 are all kind of there together. I'm just realising I don't think... Did I forget to prep it tonight? I did. I've got it in here. How are we going to do it if I've not prepped it? I think I'll worry about that a wee bit later because there's a lot to be getting through in between times. I've got the quiz and the quiz questions are all there, but I just need to prep it and do the animations. It's usually about a 2.5 minute job. I can maybe do it while I'm speaking to you a wee bit later. We'll try that. I knew that niggle as I was watching the football. I feel like there's something I've not done. There's something I've not done. And sure enough, there is. I'll open this up so I can get a bit of work done on it. Yeah, and I need some of it for the discussion that I'm going to have tonight. Let's have a wee look. Did I just forget? No, I haven't done it. It's happened before. It'll take 2 or 3 minutes, and it can happen at the end of the vPub. You'd think I would be better at this by now. Again, distracted tonight. Master Chief Sea Chest is in. Good to see you, buddy. That's Mark. Wonderful to welcome you in, buddy. And Gene Kelly saying definitely going to be at Glasgow Whisky Festival and all surrounding vPub events. Can't wait. I'll see you there, Gene. Fantastic. Neil Sungupta is saying I'm really enjoying your Ardnaho, a cracking dram. That's wonderful to hear, Neil. Absolutely everybody that's cracking it open is being surprised by it and really enjoying it. Anthony Lambert is saying good evening. All missing from the OSWAs for me is GlenAllachie. Billy has done wonders and the 10-year-old cast strength is a cracking dram. Anthony, it's funny how often people are inside my head, right? Gregor, time for a dram is in. I was just chatting to him there on the chat beforehand. Tickets acquired for a full house at Glasgow weekend. Don't know if I'm more excited at the prospect of the whiskey or the community in real life. Bring it on. I think it's always about the buzz, isn't it? Danny Keenan is saying, good evening, Roy. And the Barflies, delayed flight, but Scotland won, so who cares? Well done, Danny. Here's to that fella. Brilliant stuff. Rob Smith is saying, hello, Barflies. Me and a few friends are pooling our resources and having an OSWA-based tasting tonight. That's fantastic, Rob. And I hear a lot of this type of thing happening. And even when people can't get all the bottles that are nominated or all the brands or whatever it may be, all the producers, they have a go at it and they do the best to get on board. And it just adds a wee bit more meaning to the votes that they're going to place, I think. Fantastic, Rob. Ben's always saying, correct, Ben Demon Hunter, thinking about changing the name back. Thank you as always. Ben, you'll always just be in here as Ben. It doesn't matter what your name is, my friend. I'll recognise that wee logo from 20 paces. Graham Young is saying, cheers, everyone in Aquaviti. Cheers. Great to see 250 in tonight already. 287. Football's finished. Maybe you've thrown up your feet. I'm imagining that maybe about 10 of you have been watching the football and I'm still talking about it. Mel is saying, good evening, Roy. Good to have you in, Mel. Wonderful to have you in from Canada as well, Graham Young. Graham Young and Mark, that's Master Chief Sea Chest, I think his name is. I'm wishing you both all the very best of health and hoping that you're well on your way back to full health again. David Owen is saying, even Roy, Friday off so I can catch a vPub live. I wish I had a Friday off. I've got a busy day tomorrow. Got a bit of running about in the morning. So I'll have to keep it a wee bit tight tonight. I know I always say that, and we end up hitting the 2 hours 45 anyway. But good for you having a wee long weekend, David. Drew from Arizona, good to see you, Drew. Probably just going to be a barfly on the wall today, but I am curious, Aquaviti, if the Jim, the Whiskey Novice, is going to do another skit for the OSWAs. Did enjoy the Walking Association skit a while back. That's right, it's kind of fun, and just some years they just put in something fun and they have a bit of fun with it. Other times, we might not always see a wee contribution video, but always canvass all the contributors to see if they want to put something forward. 2 different Aquaviti Ardna bottlings in the glasses tonight. Ardnamurchan Cask for 11 and the new Ardnaho. Both thoroughly enjoyable. Mike, good for you. Thank you, my friend. Highland Hamish is saying greetings from Inverness. Any barflies coming to Dornoch Festival end of this month? And Rick Johnson is saying good afternoon from San Francisco, Roy, and wonderful barflies. 20 sleeps until the festival on Scottish soil. Bring on Glasgow Whisky Festival days. Dornoch Festival is a wee bit before that, Highland Hamish, isn't it? I've always flirted with the idea of going up there, but for me, this time of year is super, super crazy. Can't catch a breath. Responding to whatever's most urgent. Whatever's shouting loudest, right? Because obviously the channel still needs attention, still needs running, all of the stuff. Dramface is a daily grind. It's everything. There's content going out in Dramface daily. There's all these projects going on in the background. I need to tell you about the bottling. It's imminent. There's all the events that's happening, the tastings, the gatherings. It's this time of year, and obviously the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, of course. It's just very, very intense time of year, and I have to pick my battles. And the Dornoch Festival tends to happen at this time of year, doesn't it? Mirko from Germany, see evening, Roy, counting the days until Glasgow Whisky Festival, but this weekend I'm heading to Whisky Live Germany first. That's one of the bigger ones, isn't it, buddy? I bet you have an absolute blast. Just as it jumps all the way down, but it jumps to my pal Graham Fraser. It's an evening, Roy and Barflies. Here on a pub crawl in Stirling tonight after 3 dry days. I hope everyone's good. Nice to welcome you in, buddy. Dry days are always a great idea, and it's nice to get back into it with a wee kind of supportive, semi-healthy pub crawl / walk, right? Donnerpass Whiskey's bought me a dram. Hope the next few days are wonderful. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Donnerpass Whiskey. And Stevie O has bought me a dram as well. Let's all raise a dram for Alan Gray's mum, who passed yesterday. See his message. I'm so sorry, Alan Gray. I didn't pick up his message. Stevie, thank you for the gesture. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. Let's raise a wee glass for one of ours that could do with a wee hug and a cuddle and strength, love and support. Alan, I'm very, very sorry to hear of your loss. Condolences. Sending love and strength, my friend. Cheers, Alan. got something in the glass. And I'm going to talk about that for a minute, and then we're going to move on to a couple of distilleries that you guys have already mentioned. So I know it hasn't escaped your attention what hasn't made it through to the online Scotch Whisky Award nominations for 2025. But there's usually a discussion about this every year. The big news, I think, of 2024, we might remember, and a year ago, we had me having a fantastic opportunity to talk about Bruichladdich and share the Bruichladdich 18. And I think, if I remember well, I don't remember the other one, maybe it was the organic release, Scottish barley or something, can't remember now. But I was sharing a couple of Bruichladdich just to talk about the reasons that I felt just stabbing in the dark about why Bruichladdich might not have made it through. Well, there are a couple of omissions in 2025 that are really stark, where Bruichladdich in the past have been in and out and in and out, despite always featuring in the People's Choice Top 10 chart. What we've got, the omissions in 2025, are things that you really feel are a shoe-in, and certainly in some categories, to not have them break through is kind of strange, maybe even notable. But I think the distilleries I'm going to talk about tonight are going to be not in the OSWAs, all for very different reasons. There is some overlap, no doubt, but I think that it's quite interesting to talk about. But I need to caveat always, you know, you're tuning into the vPub, and it's just me kind of talking and sharing. It's my own opinion, it's my own perspectives, and it's my own kind of pondering, right? I don't have any insight into any of these things. I'm just looking at it from my perspective. And what I try really, really hard to do from my perspective, is buy my own whiskey, stay on the side of the table where the punter stands, stay on the side of the counter where the punter stands, and try and do everything from the punter's consumer's perspective in order to kind of keep my view of things as aligned as possible with you guys, with my community. And I think that that's the most valuable thing for the industry. If you're on the industry side, you get wrapped up in those dynamics, very kind of business driven, and you understand things from number of SKUs and you know, distributors and importers and agents, and it's just everything's a little bit focused on things that are opaque to the consumer. And I have found that if I keep to the consumer side, at least it means when I'm sharing my opinion, it's clear that it's from that perspective, and it's honest and earnest. And people can, you know, take it with a pinch of salt, or they can use it as food for thought, or interesting, or boring, or dull, or misinformed. It doesn't matter. This is a discussion, and that's one of the things that we love about whiskey, is that it does generate a lot of chitty chat. Anyway, welcome everyone. Let's get started. Something in the glass tonight. It's very, very nice. One of those I'd forgotten how good it was. This is Arran 18-year-old. Now, Arran 18-year-old, I remember picking this up when it was 75 quid. Not going to have a whinge about price, because Arran 18 was one of the 18-year-olds you might remember back in the day, maybe 2021, going from memory. I think it was 2021. Maybe it could have been 2020. One of the first 18-year-olds that we were regularly raving about and enjoying, that broke the £100 mark. And it went over £100. And I think if I know myself, I probably had a whinge about that at the time. But now Arran 18 is hovering around £120. And compared to its peers out there, that's not particularly expensive anymore. I do believe that Arran 18 and all other 18-year-olds could be doing with being a little bit more competitive. It remains to be seen if the prices will drop for the kind of more premium age stated stuff. But once it reaches those heights, it's unlikely to come back again. And I think that north of £100 is where the majority of the core range products sit in terms of price today. It may be different where you are, but in my experience, 18-year-olds in the States and North America can be even more expensive still, regardless of the brand. I've held up this 18-year-old tonight because I could have, there's a multitude of different Arrans that I could have held up to talk about that distillery. I could have held up the OSWA conquering, all-conquering, trifecta winning, best value winner in the first year, best Scotch winner in the first year of the OSWAs, Arran 10-year-old, and it doesn't appear in 2025. In fact, despite the fact that we've got the quarter cask, or the bothy, whatever they're calling it these days, the quarter cask, I think, despite the fact we've got the Sherry Bodega, we've got other age statements, we've got the special cask releases, we've got the signature series, we've got lots and lots of things coming out from Arran. Despite all of that, the distillery itself hasn't managed a nomination. In fact, anything from that organisation, the Isle of Arran Distillers, we have a nomination for Best New Distillery in the form of Lag, and that's the only way they've broken through. But Lochranza in the north of Arran, like everybody's favourite distillery, it seems, hasn't managed to break through in the Online Scotch Whisky Awards in 2025. Listen, nobody is really upset or angry or really enraged about this. We've celebrated Arran over the Online Scotch Whisky Awards as a community for years now. I don't think it's almost like it makes sense that something else should stand in the sunshine for a little while. But I don't think that is what Arran is suffering from. Nobody's standing up and saying, let's give another distillery a go. Certainly not consciously. I think with Arran, we have now transitioned with Arran to being a new distillery to a legacy distillery in our mindset. A little bit. I remember when, all these new wave distilleries, craft distilleries, independent distilleries, 21st century distilleries. There's lots and lots of different ways. I've even recently heard somebody calling them hipster whiskies and hipster distilleries. I mean, it's just terrible, right? It's like, because they're not meaning that in a positive way. These new distilleries that break through, we have to remember, the OG new distillery was Arran. Founded in 1995, and 3 or 4 years after the new malt started to appear on the market. It took a while for people to pay attention, and I also put it to everyone that it took a while for Arran to put out a mature product that came of age. And I'm not just talking about age statement there, I'm talking about in terms of quality. I remember the 10-year-old and the 14-year-old being out at the same time, and them sipping so lovely that we realised there was a kind of moment where we realised that Arran had come around all the challenges, and it was really starting to sing. It's become a wee bit more cask reliant, I would say, in modern times. I think a lot of modern whiskies are cask reliant. That's whether it's sherry, bourbon, or what have you. Some of when the 10-year-old and the 14-year-old Arrans came out, 2012, 2014 era, I'm talking about up to about 2016, there was a lot more kind of spirit forward. The casks were a little bit quieter, and I think Arran benefited hugely from my perspective out of that. They were the first hipster distillery, right? They were the first. They had product out there before Glengyle had their work in progress out. They had product out there before Kilchoman released its first whiskey, and they certainly were well ahead of Daft Mill. When it came to new distilleries, when it came to new wave distilleries, they were the first. But if you think about Arran now, they've got such an established brand, such an established, reliable, available everywhere core range, that I think what may be happening now is the Online Scotch Whisky Awards is getting a little bit more edgy. It's getting a little bit more niche, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Do any of us think that Arran will not make it back into Online Scotch Whisky Awards in the future? If we don't see Arran in the imminent years ahead, I will start to become surprised. I think it's very much still in the centre of our vision. The majority of us in here probably have an Arran on the shelf or on hand. And even if we don't, it would be something that we would perhaps consider buying. I don't know if you would agree. For me, in 2025, despite everything else I'm going to talk about tonight, for me not to see Arran, Lochranza, represented in any category was the biggest surprise, the biggest shock. Donner Pass Tim is saying, yes, the old bottle style of Arran 18 was beautiful and less of a sherry bomb, but I love the current ones too. I do too, and I always surprise myself how much I actually do like a nice level of cask influence on a whiskey. It's a great step change and mood change. Probably if I was having to choose only one whiskey, it would be something a bit less cask forward. But, you know, we never have to choose one whiskey. So while we can have the variation, it's nice to sit backwards and forwards, and that helps us appreciate the more subtle things maybe, or the more spirit-forward things. I agree, Tim. Cheers. This particular 18-year-old, slightly newer batch, I remember when it jumped up in price a couple of years back, and I had a whinge. And the brand ambassador that worked for them at that time reached out to me directly and explained, there's just none of this liquid left. It's super, super rare. And that ended up being true, because the year after that, they didn't release an Arran 18. They released a 17-year-old instead, because they just didn't have the stock in order to do a big enough release for Arran 18. Well, it's back again. The Arran 18 is back. So obviously they're going back, and they've caught up a little bit, and they've now got stock available. Arran went through a lot of capacity increases over the years. You have to imagine that's been the case, because you consider how widespread and available globally that 10-year-old is. And despite all the chat, despite the value, despite people understanding how good a wee bottle of whiskey that is, they still manage to keep up with the demand for it. So they're doing a good job. Despite their scale, their size, their independence, Arran are still doing a fantastic job. And I just want to take a beat today to say, look, Arran, you've not done anything particularly wrong. Your pricing, your presentation, everything is on point. We still love the stuff. I think it's the reason Arran has not appeared this year is because we have celebrated it heavily over the course of the 4 previous online Scotch Whisky Awards sessions. Would you agree? Gerben is saying I might have 10 or more different Arrans. So you see, it's a popular thing, Gerben. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Mike Molasses is saying, I enjoyed the Arran Sherry Cask when I first had it, revisiting it recently. It didn't live up to my memory of it. Wonder if that's an open bottle thing, or maybe you've just started sipping much more performing or higher performing whiskies, Mike. A dram's come in from David Hong, the silent donator, my pal David from the States. It's always a privilege to have you in, David. Thank you very much for looking after me when you are here, even if you don't say too much, my friend. Thank you, David. Cheers. Tom Franey is saying, evening, Roy. Arran's Quarter Cask and its 10-year-old are just classics. I love to have. They're great whiskies to open when introducing new folks to whiskey. I would absolutely agree. I would say one of the most successful crowd pleasers is Arran 10, especially with the slightly more cask-driven profile that it's grown to in more recent years. Just the use of more first fill bourbon casks, I would say. Barry Coleman is saying, the Arran 18 was my Christmas whiskey, but last year I paused at the price and went for a Lag and a Bowen sherry cask. So you're switching it up. And let's be honest, these distilleries know that when they do push the prices up, there is attrition. There will be invested fans that normally regularly buy the whiskey that will stop at the price increase, but they hope that they're still going to sell the stuff and do well and make a bit more money out of it. I think it's nice when we do help and slow down our purchasing a little bit, even if what happens over the course of a year, 18 months, 2 years, a bit more, other producers, other brands catch up with that price level. Often it's the first domino to fall, right? It's the first one to take the step. But there's just so much right now that I think that it's being very short-sighted. And when we talk about that, really, the deep stocks catching up, we're beyond the deep stocks catching up now. The stocks are becoming excessive to the point that the scrabble for warehouse space and expanding warehouse space and all of that type of thing is becoming more of an issue over recent times. And that whiskey is maturing faster. You know, time catches up, right? Really quickly. And I think that in the future, they could end up being forced to choke back on the price levels for older whiskies. It's uncomfortably expensive for me right now. I pay it because I love it and I'm passionate about it, but there's so much choice that every month that passes, it feels like it's harder to justify spending the money on 15, 16, 18, 21-year-old plus official bottles. Indies are a different thing altogether. Indies are back at us. Indies are back in our realm again. Lorna is saying, do you know the latest news regarding this Arran 14 making a return to the shelves? Hasn't that been the latest news for about 5 years now? I've not heard anything of an update. I hope that the 14, if it does return, it doesn't rely too heavily on cask. I hope it goes a little bit back to the beautiful, elegant spirit. Falling out of love with Arran a bit in recent times. This is interesting, James. For whatever reason, the Swedish importer is a bit shite. Haven't had the 10 for years. They only bring in wine casks. No sense. So I wonder if that's the importer that's the issue rather than the producer. And just for clarity for anybody listening in, who cares? Grain of Malt, that's James McGorran, and he's in Sweden. Hellswood is saying, love the Arran Madeira, which was able to sip on a visit to the distillery. And David Owen, good to see you, Helen. I hope you're doing very well. Is there any new news about Andy? I hope he's all right. I've not seen him in tonight. David Owen is saying that the Arran Cute quarter cask is always on my shelf. So you're enjoying that higher ABV, aren't you? And Fernando is saying, I think that the rise of more craft producers, the chance of getting nominated year after year, will get harder for everyone. Something we should celebrate. That's an interesting point that you take there, Fernando. And I'm going to skip on to the next thing. Do you remember the first year of the OSWAs and the new distilleries? There was far less new distilleries back in 2021 than there is today. There's a lot more brands being released onto the market. So we've got a lot more choice, but everybody was shouting from the rooftops when Raasay didn't get a nomination. Raasay hasn't had a nomination in 2025. Despite being arguably, I would say, one of the most prominent new distilleries still in 2025. But somehow they didn't get a nomination. And the years are ticking by for Raasay. I think what I would like to see from Raasay is apart from the obvious gripes about the price of their visitor centre exclusives and things, listen, it's not just me. The people that come back from Raasay, the people that come back from any of these visitor centres, they see that the ridiculously unnecessary high prices charged for distillery exclusives. When you've got that kind of sense of ensconced remoteness, you feel a little taken advantage of if you're asked to pay excessive prices for these things. And I would like to see that changed at Raasay. But the other thing I would love to see at Raasay as well, just because of how much I love the whiskey and how much I love the distillery, is I would love to see some maturity starting to come through now. It is there, it's happening, but it's taking a wee bit longer. This particular example is a cracking value. I think I paid 65 for this, but this is their cask strength release. So it uses their peated and unpeated spirit, and the 6 cask thing. What is it they call it? They call it Nasia or something like that. So we've got X-Rye, we've got Chinkapin, we've got and a wee bit of Bordeaux wine. So let's get a wee drop of this in the glass, because this has been forgotten about and it's been languishing behind some of the other Raasays I've got on the go. And have a wee think about why an exciting, zeitgeisty new distillery with a lot of personality behind it too has not made it through. I think of the other nominations that's got through this year, as I've already mentioned, Ledaig made it through. We've also got Holyrood that have made it through. And how did they get ahead of Raasay? And I think for that reason, we don't look at the dynamics or try to find anything weak or any kind of chinks in the armour of Raasay. I think we need to look at how the Online Scotch Whisky Awards are structured to answer that question. Cheers, everyone. on the nose there. As I put my nose in the glass just before a sip, it's very orchardy. On the back of that sweet and sweet sherry forward Arran, I got a big blast of crunchy, crisp orchard fruit, apples and pears. It's quite malty as well. There's more fruit there. It's maybe leaning a wee bit more on kind of red fruit. A wee bit autumnal, a wee bit mulchy. A bit wood spice, like you know, the nutmegs and the cinnamons and things like that. But there's also a kind of a pencil case cedarwood, fresh sawn, dusty woodiness as well. It's quite big. It's quite robust. Have another wee sip now. Not a lot of peat smoke for me. On the end, on the finish, the peat smoke kind of comes in a little bit. What ABV is this? Because it's actually sipping quite favourably. 61.3, wow. And I suspect this is about 4 or 5 year old whiskey. I think there's an edge to Raasay that's still a bit arms and legs. It's still a bit elbows and knees. It's still a bit jagged. It still needs to kind of round out a bit. It still needs to mature. I think it's doing a fantastic job. And just look, as this is sitting on my desk right now, you can't see it, but the way that the light from the screens is shining through this bottle, the way that it shows the colour, the natural colour of the whiskey is gorgeous. I suspect there's a wee bit of the wine casks helping and the richness of the colour here. But if we talk about the way the OSWAs are structured, 20 contributors throw nominations into a big hat. 20 contributors. And how are these 20 contributors selected each year? They are selected because their primary function is to guide, review, write about, inform on the back of, in the realm of Scotch whisky. So they can talk about any whiskey that they want, it's just whatever, but if they have a handle on, and maybe the core focus of them is Scotch whisky, they're the ones that's selected each year. And we'll kind of rotate them year after year, and I've never had anybody that's not invited back as a core contributor be upset at all. They're fine. Everybody's quite pragmatic and really quite humble about the whole thing. But if they're not a core contributor, they still vote as part of the huge amount of contributors that we have on board. But core contributors are tasked with creating out of thin air the nominations. How did we do that this year? We went out to the community and we harvested suggestions from the community. So when those the nominators, you like, the core contributors were sitting to come up with their nominations, they had their own ideas, and then they had the sanity check as inspiration from the community. And Ralphie and I spent a lot of time going through those, cleaning them up to make sure they were all appropriate, removing all the duplicates and things like that. But as we were doing that, we were saying, oh, that's a good one, that's a good one. And there was an additional column put in, a TLDR, if you like, because the community suggestions were very, very long. Lots and lots and lots of community suggestions. Of course, you can imagine, right? 400 people out in the community giving suggestions. It's going to end up with hundreds of suggestions. So Ralph and I were going, that's a good one. Let's highlight that. Let's highlight that. And then we put that information alongside all the nominations that had happened in the past on the OSWAs and explained the winner each year. So you can understand, especially when we're encouraging them to help bring variety to the OSWAs, that they might look and say, oh, Raasay's had a decent run. Arran's had a decent run. And if they're thinking between two things that are very similar and they're really struggling because we all know how hard it is to make a decision, maybe they'll factor in these have had their time in the sun. Let's let this one shine a little bit. And they put that forward as a nomination. Then once the nominations are out there, that generates a big fat list of about anywhere between 15 and a couple of dozen or more nominations that go out to all the 120 people that are involved, and they vote. They are the ones that decide what the final 6 is going to be. That's how it works. So you can see with that structure, as robust and as right and as functional as I believe it to be, and it's difficult to come up with something that's better, I think that they can suffer a little bit from that selection process. But if that's true, if that is the case, my prediction about Arran returning will be true in the future. And my prediction about Isle of Raasay distillery will be back again in the future too. This is a decent wee dram. It's very, very similar to the other kind of new wave distilleries cask strength releases, where they tend to be non-age statement. They tend to be 5, 6, 7 years old, maybe sometimes a wee bit older, maybe sometimes a wee bit younger. They tend to be of that order. They tend to be a little bit like Arran's quarter cask, if I'm honest. That's a good kind of place as to slot it. If you haven't tried any of these cask strengths from Raasay, from Ardnamurchan, from Lochlee, from these new distilleries, that's where these sit. Wonderfully robust, potent, powerful whiskies. Put a wee bit of water in this one before I skip on. Powerful whiskies for actually pretty reasonable money. 60, 65 pounds most of the time. That's the sweet spot. There are a couple that are a bit more expensive than that, and I think the ones that are expensive suffer. I'm looking at you, Ann and Dale. Just a wee scoosh of water. I can't believe how much apple, sharp and also a wee bit sweet. Apple and pear, quite ripe, sweet pear, but there's a crispness as well, and I've never had that much orchard fruit from not that I can remember from this dram before. It really is like passing an apple pastry or some applesauce, but there's a brightness and a crispness to it as well. So it's not really cooked and all stewed away. There's a nice kind of fresh orchard zing, like a vibrance to it. And then now that it's been dug from the back of the shelf, and it's sitting at the front of the Raasay section over there, the cask strength will get a wee bit more attention from me. Long finish as well. What do they call that? Retronasal. Alistair McPhail saying, I told the people on the Raasay stand at London Whisky Show last weekend that what I wanted to see was merch that fitted a normal-sized adult human. You're quite a big guy, Alistair, but that's fair enough. I think they should have merch to fit everyone. Absolutely. I think it's exactly it, says James Aquaviti, and there's a few more guys to get some attention now. Also, I know I switched some votes in new directions. That's interesting. You're conscious of it, and you're doing it, and you're able to recognise that that's something that you're doing. Keith Jeffrey has just joined Aquavite Barflies. Thank you very much, Keith. You and all other Barflies now have a wee loyalty Barfly badge next to your name. You have access to all the channel-themed emoji and things like that, but the big thing that you're doing is, of course, supporting me, but you're supporting me in a way that I never need to go to Google to put ads on any of the Aquavite content. I now have more support from the Barflies than Google ever gave me when I had advertising back in the day. There hasn't been advertising on my channel for years. That's down to the Barflies. Thank you all so much. Alan, the whiskey friend, is in. Got to hang out with Alan ever so briefly last night. In Glasgow, he was up. He said, Aquavite, you talked me into pouring a wee Arran quarter cask. Cheers, fella. Are you back down the road? You back in Manchester already? Just a brief visit up north of the border for you, Alan. Hope the quarter cask is going down well, buddy, and it was good to hang out with you for a wee bit in Glasgow. Need to make more a habit of that, don't you? I'm going to take you through a few slides here because I did this last year and I found it quite interesting. And I'm not going to go into deep dives. This is very, very kind of scratch the surface type overview things, and I think that's all that you're really interested in. But I'd like to do that because I think it's a wee bit worthwhile. Last year I shared with everyone that of all the 54 nominations in the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, they were spread over 33 companies. In 2025, it's not a huge change, but it's a contraction. So we are now saying that, and it's already come out in the chat, that we're talking about, yeah, but there's so much more choice, there's so much more to chase out there, there's so many more options available. But what's actually happened to the Online Scotch Whisky Awards in 2025 is that a contraction in the number of companies that are sharing the spoils in the nominations. 33 has dropped down to 29. I don't want to read too much from that, but I want to put a marker in it and keep it in mind. I think it's interesting that there are less this year. Let's look at how these are split. I'm going to take you back to 2024. This is how it looked last year. This is a list of all the companies that had a single nomination in the Online Scotch Whisky Awards in 2024. 23 different brands, producers, companies, distilleries, independent bottlers, however you want to list them, had a single nomination. Contrast that with 2025, and we drop to 15. That's quite something. 23 down to 15 is suddenly not inconsequential. That's quite a lot. There are some new players in here, definitely. Isle of Arran is mentioned in that list. You can see it. That's because of lag. But that's quite a drop. So what we're saying is that we've still got the same amount of nominations as we have in any other year, but we're spreading them a little bit thicker. We're giving them to less companies. I think that that's curious. So let's see what's happened to the distilleries that got more than one nomination. How many distilleries, brands, whatever however you want to list them, producers, managed to get more than one nomination? Well, in 2024, that list was 10. It was topped by Adelphi and J&A Mitchell with 5 each, Gordon MacPhail and Thompson Brothers with 4 each, CVH Spirits. CVH, by the way, used to be Distilling before that Burn Stewart. So we're talking Deanston, Tobermory, Ledaig, and Bunnahabhain. Beam Suntory managed to get 2, Compass Box 2, Loch Lomond Group 2, Irish Distillers 2, and Campari 2. Interestingly, the Campari 2 would have been 2 Wild Turkeys, and the Irish Distillers would have been, I believe 2 Redbreasts, or potentially a Redbreast in the Powers or something like that. So that's the spread. 10 companies had more than one nomination. Skip forward to 2025. What a change. What a big change. 50% more companies enjoyed more than one nomination. What does that mean? That means that we seem to be focusing and concentrating the votes. There seems to be, you could argue and say, well, that's more companies, isn't it? There's more. But it's actually interesting to see that rather than, just take an example in there, Glasgow have got 2 nominations, Best Distillery and Best New Distillery. Maybe in previous years we would have seen Glasgow breaking through in just one of those categories, and maybe Raasay or something getting through instead. I think it's interesting. J&A Mitchell are still up there messing around at the top, but Adelphi slipped down a little bit this year. J&A Mitchell have actually increased 5 in 2023, that's the number in brackets, to 6 this year. Thompson Brothers has stayed firm on 4 nominations. Adelphi's gone 5 down to 3. We have to remember that Adelphi are no longer able to enter into one of their almost guaranteed nomination slots, which would have been New Distillery. They are now beyond the 10-year threshold, and they are now mixing it with the big boys and the legacy producers. Gordon MacPhail have dropped down a wee bit, 4 in 2024, down to 3 in 2025. And Compass Box have actually gone up and got an extra nomination. Holding their own, Loch Lomond Group, increasing their nominations from 1 last year to 2 this year. They're both for Elijah Craig's Heaven Hill. White Peak have done the same thing. They've managed to get in the new distillery nominations this year, as well as a product for Best World Whisky. That's in their bourbon cask. Dewar's have got 2 GlenAllachies in this year. Brown-Forman's in there because of Jack Daniels, of course, the Jack Daniels single barrel proof. Glasgow Distilleries in there because of new distillery and distillery. Nika are in there because of Yoichi. And also, I can't remember the other one, Nika from the barrel, of course, in the blends. Remy Cointreau, they're in there because of Bruichladdich, of course. Bruichladdich are in for 2 nominations this year, Best Distillery and Best Scotch Whisky. Signatory Vintage are up from 0 only in 2024 because you remember they were under trifecta. But they've now got a Best Value entry for the 100 Proof series, as well as Best Independent Bottler. And finally, Whisky Soul's a brand new entry as well. They're completely out of the blue, and this is an interesting one that I want to touch upon. I can't talk too much about Whisky Souls because they're in the nominations, of course. But there's when I get to the Independent Bottler section, there's an example I can show you about how they managed to break through. That's the Living Souls releases that's done that. I find that fascinating, the spread and the split. It's just another way of summarizing it there in a different order. But I want to talk about where the big 6 are. Where are our big legacy producers? Because you might remember in 2024, it was quite remarkable how few there were in terms of nominations. We can summarize that. Diageo, of course, Pernod Ricard, William Grant's, Edrington, Dewar's, and Beam Suntory. There's 1 or 2 others that you could argue should be in the list and make it a big 8, maybe Inverhouse and White & Mackay. Producers like that should maybe be in this mix too, but let's focus on 6 for now. And the numbers and brackets there are 2024's nominations. And the numbers to the left of that is this year. Diageo, nothing. Pernod Ricard, nothing. William Grant's, nothing. Edrington, nothing. Beam Suntory, nothing. And if it wasn't for the fantastic GlenAllachie, and let's be honest, there's actually a few things from Dewar's that's very good. Altmore is another cracker. Dewar's wouldn't be featuring either, but the 13-year-old GlenAllachie, which nails the value point, in my opinion, it's a fantastic whiskey. And the 17-year-old is a beautifully crafted, very distinct treat of a whiskey. They've managed to get something in there for the big 6, but all those other producers, and by the way, those other 5 names that I've just listed, they account for 80% of, maybe more than 80% of all the whiskey that's made. And they get nothing. So that word I used a wee bit earlier, that kind of hipster word, the craft, the new wave distilleries, the new independent producers and bottlers, we are seeing more of them coming in. But when they get in, they're digging in their claws. They're staying, they're sticky. Ardnamurchan and Adelphi, the Thompson brothers, J&A Mitchell. From a combined nominations count of 54 Scotch malt distilleries or brands, owned by these 6 companies, I should say, distilleries, only 1 is nominated. Only 1, and that's GlenAllachie. That, to me, is flabbergasting. You're talking about Diageo, 30 distilleries, Pernod Ricard, 12. So that's 42. William Grant's got 4 actually, haven't they? 4 malt distilleries. So that's 46. Edrington have 3, so that's 49. Beam Suntory have 5, don't they? So that's 55, and then 4 or 5 from Dewar's. It's about 60 distilleries. We're getting close to half the Scotch malt distilleries in Scotland owned by the big 6, right? And they manage 1 nomination. Is it because we are too niche-y? Are we too geeky? Are we ignoring? Are we forgetting? Are we deciding that we're too cool for these things? Let's not get carried away. That's not the dynamic. That's not what's going on. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. The other ones that are missing, I've mentioned a couple of them already. White and Mackay, and I'm talking about Beam Suntory were here obviously last year, but they're not nowhere to be seen this year. Beam Suntory are not there. Glenmorangie, interestingly, is not in the mix either. There's no Ardbeg nomination or anything this year, so actually nothing from Louis Vuitton Moët Hennessy. La Martini K's, that's Glenmurray, of course. They're not in the running. A pretty big producer out up there. A lot of products under their belt, just even from one distillery. Obviously Starlaw and the grain distillery in the Lowlands as well. Then we've got Ian McLeod for Tamdhu, for Glengoyne, Rosebank. There's nothing in there from them. Edrington, Highland Park, Glenrothes, obviously Macallan, nothing. And Inverhouse, Thai Beverage, Interbev, whatever you want to call them. They've done crazy things recently, taken Anok completely off the discussion table for us. Speyburn destroyed as far as we're concerned, watered down to 40%. Such beautiful liquids, just abused, really abused. They will not likely appear in the Online Scotch Whisky Awards because our community is completely disgusted with the moves that's been taken by Inverhouse over those two brands. And we're suddenly looking at our Balblairs and our Old Pultneys and getting a wee bit nervous about that too. Let's talk about prices. The average prices for this is a clumsy way of doing things. You take all the suggested retail prices in the UK in pounds and you add it up and then you divide it by 6 to get the average in the category. So one particularly expensive one in a category can really skew things, but it's only happened once in this calculation. So indulge me for a bit till we go through it. The best value has gone up from an average price of 47 to 53. Best blended has stayed firm, 45, 44. Best blended has gone from 43 to 56. That's a big jump. There's a lot of creativity happening in there, and we're actually coming round to spending a wee bit more on our blends. Best non-malt whiskey is kind of the same, 82 to 88 pounds, but it's gone up a wee bit. Best world whiskey has jumped up a huge lump there, 60 to 106, but that's because of the Chichibu. If you take the Chichibu out of it, that's the number in brackets, and it stays a bit firm. It's 52 pounds, maybe even come down a wee bit. And finally, best Scotch has gone from 90 to 105 pounds. So again, we have an interesting thing here as well, where we're seeing attenuation in prices, but the things that's making it through into the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, we're actually willing to spend a wee bit more on our whisky. And I'm going to suggest to you that that's happening at the same time as us buying less quantity. I think the Online Scotch Whisky Awards actually, in a very small way, are reflecting that dynamic. We can talk a wee bit more about it while we go on to talk about who the other surprise omissions are in 2025. Let's see who I've missed. Klitz is saying plenty of Diageo in the 100 Proof series. So kind of nominated. Yeah, not from Diageo though. The other people are representing their products better. Donner Pass Whiskey is actually celebrating that there's no Diageo. He's probably sick of the way that Diageo have gone about their business. I am sick of it. I really am. I am too cool for boring whiskey. It's actually a tongue-in-cheek statement there, Jimmy, but you're actually quite right, aren't you? Falsgraph is saying 40% coloured, high prices, 3 factors that put us off the big guys. Brian Storm is saying the big six don't excite us. We get our pleasure elsewhere, but I agree, yours deserve to be in there. Fernando is saying the big six chart perfectly reflects the industry landscape about the focus of these companies. Andrew Dorr is saying thanks for all you and Ralphie's along with other 100+ contributors work on the OSWAs. Andrew, thank you very much. It's appreciated. We do it for the community, believe me. Auderty is saying Aquaviti for average, you need to use median, not mean maths. Well, now I know I've got somebody to reach out to, sorry. Rick Johnson is saying total geekery, awesome. Thank you very much, Rick, thanks to you. I'm going to be seeing you in Glasgow as well soon as well. Falscraft is saying, yes, these changes are very interesting. My question is, what produces the effect? Is it due to the taste of the nominations, or have the changes in procedure caused this? I think it's so I think that 2 of what you suggest is correct, but I think we are reacting to and acting in reflection of the changes that's been offered to us. So we are not choosing the path, we are actually following the path. And we're just fortunate to be living in a time where there are producers out there that we can follow. Dave VP is saying Agraviti, very happy to see Holyrood nominated this year, as two of the owners are the much-loved organisers of the Canadian SMWL's chapter. Thanks for the work you put into the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. It was interesting to me, Dave, to see Holyrood getting through as well, because now they've got their products out there. They've released their Arrival, and then the Embra. They followed up with the Embra. Two very interesting whiskies, two very different takes on whiskey, and then a different take again on the pitch. So they put out their three kind of route to a core range whiskies. But what Holyrood is desperately needing right now is a core range anchor for us to connect with. Do they have something with deep enough stocks that they can call a core range? Do they have a goal in mind? Do they have something that we can say, oh, that's Holyrood? I know it's a very traditional way of doing it, and not everybody has to follow that path. But I think it would be nice for us to have a Holyrood anchor product. Price and access likely to determine OSWA nominations. There's absolutely no doubt that these are dynamics, Graham. Depending on where you are, what you have access to, can absolutely define what gets through in the OSWA nominations. And yet, the biggest criticism that you will have over J&A Mitchell products, specifically Springbank brands, making it through in the OSWAs, is that how can they get through when we can't buy them? And I am a little bit tired now of standing up for Springbank, because it ends up you go around the full circle, don't you, all the time, and then you become tired of standing up for them, and then you become tired of the criticism again, and you stand up for them and you become tired. Springbank is in the nominations every single year because they deserve to be there. You know, it's not that we're voting for something that you can't get. We can't get the thing because we're voting for it. It's not being celebrated because it's hard to get a hold of. It's hard to get a hold of because it's being celebrated. It's success. They are and remain the torchbearers. And there are people out there that want to see them burn. There are people out there that want to see them not talked about. People, entitled people, potentially, and I'm getting a wee bit, I should attenuate what I'm saying, because people get angry because they can't get a hold of it. So what they're putting themselves before the success. They're putting themselves, and I know that the OSWAs are supposed to celebrate accessibility, they really are. And I think that the OSWAs should celebrate, accessibility and availability. But if you really want Springbank, you can get it. I've said it so many times before. And I know I've tongue-in-cheek said you can drive to Springbank and usually you can buy something, even if it's from the Demijohns and that type of thing. But of course, I can't easily drive to Springbank, and I'm in Scotland, for crying out loud. It is very tongue-in-cheek. But you can get it shipped to you. You can buy it at auction. The auctions ship internationally too. And these days, for the core range stuff, you maybe have to pay a wee bit over retail, but you're not being asked to pay the gouge prices in local retail in the west coast of the US, for example, across Europe, continental Europe. There are retailers out there that are gouging on price in Springbank. But you can get it. So I have a real hard time with a producer that's done everything that we've asked, done everything the right way for decades, to suddenly be told that they can't participate or they shouldn't be allowed to participate. We shouldn't be nominating them because they've done everything right. And it's proved to be a success. I have a real problem with that. Sorry for the mini rant. Top Shelf Dustin is in saying we can't get the thing because we are voting for it. Roy, the best quote ever. I hope you understand my point. Springbank is not being voted for because it's hard to get. It's hard to get because we're voting for it. And if the OSWAs weren't voting for it, it wouldn't change a thing. Because we knew before the pandemic how good Springbank was, and it was difficult to get before the pandemic. During the COVID years and everyone going crazy for whiskey and using whiskey as an investment, flipping profiteering vehicle, that exacerbated things hugely. But what it also did is it dialed in the focus on Springbank as a brand specifically. And it became the discussion around Springbank changed from how good the whiskey is and what a good job they're doing to this is horrendous. Why can't we get more of this? Why can't we get more? Why don't Springbank increase their capacity? Springbank have been increasing their capacity for a decade now. And it's very, very, very difficult for them to do. And if you need an example of that, look at the 5-year-old Springbank that was released recently. That is a product of deeper stocks from Springbank. The deeper stocks that's going to bolster availability of the 10-year-old and the 12-year-old and everything going forward as well in the future. I know what you're going to say, Roy. This 5-year-old disappeared instantly. It turned into vapor, and then it went on to secondary at 2, 3, 4 times the price. It's the first release from that 5-year-old. It was always going to be in high demand. It was a very, very exciting product to drop. We do need to be patient about these things. But Springbank and Glengyle Kilkerran have increased capacity. Gary Field is saying there is so much Springbank 10 on auction at the moment. And you can see it, Gary. It's going for maybe a $5 or 10 or more at the most. Excuse me, Anthony saying, sad to see that there are no whiskies from Wales or England in the world whiskey category. Penderyn makes some great drams, and the Cotswolds are doing the same in England. There's at least 3 English distilleries, Anthony. Filey Bay, Spirit of Yorkshire, is in there. White Peak is in there with 2 different nominations in 2 different categories. Circumstance from Bristol is in the running as well. Or maybe you're just speaking specifically about world whiskey, but even then, no, there are English whiskies. English whiskies have done actually remarkably well when you consider about it. When you consider how tightly we keep it and how it's kind of from a Scotch whiskey loving community, I think I'm quite surprised. Cotswolds regularly feature. Fernando saying, no need to apologise, we love rants. I wonder if you agree with the rants though, Fernando. A wee distraction from me. While we're on the topic of Springbank and J&A Mitchell's, let's look at a silver lining to the cloud that one of their distilleries hasn't made it into the nominations for this year. I didn't think I was going to be able to open this and share it with you, but I can. This is Kilkerran 16, and I know that you're all going to be getting, there's another whiskey I couldn't get a hold of, but Roy did. Listen, the Kilkerran 16 they were hanging around for a long time. I'm not sure if they're still hanging around now, but there was a lot of these around, in the UK at least, and you could get them. And I would also suggest to you that the outturn in the scale of this Kilkerran 16 is such that if you really want to get it and you pick it up on secondary, I imagine that a bit like the Springbank 10s and things, it's not going to go for much over retail. Maybe a bit more. I'm not sure. I'm not an auction expert, but let's get this one open. First thing I want to draw attention to is look at the colour. I wonder if I've got another Kilkerran within reach. Another 16, Kilkerran 16. I almost do, but I'll knock something over reaching for it. Let's give it a try. Forget about the bottle shape here. Look, this is the traditional bottle shape for Kilkerran on the left, the dumpy bottle, and this is just a tall round in the new 16, and that's because there's been a fire at the factory of the glass supplier. So it'll take them a while to get back to this, but can you see the colour difference there? I don't know how best to show it off, but we've got a super dark whiskey in the 2025 release, and in the 2024, last year's Kilkerran 16 is much paler, despite having sherry cask in there too. This is the beauty of producers like Springbank. They're going to change it year after year. The cask ratio is going to change based on availability, preference, scope, idea, playfulness, whatever it may be, creativity. Hopefully they're putting flavour first, of course. But I always loved, of course it's me, it's Roy, it's Aquaviti, right? I love the pale Kilkerrans. I think maybe my favourite could potentially still be the first release, the super quiet, super soft release. Absolutely adored it, but there's been crackers ever since then. I have loved every Kilkerran 16 that's come out, but this is the one I've been nervous of. Because despite the fact that the ratio hasn't really increased in favour of sherry, you can see that the sherry casks that have been chosen for this, just by visual, is much, much more, not aggressive, let's not say aggressive, active is a better word, isn't it? Maybe it's been a wee while since I've had anything from Springbank Glengyle. If I nose this, and I don't always get it depending on how much Springbank stuff I've been enjoying. This is not from Springbank Distillery, same producers as from Glengyle, but there's a funk here, and I don't always get it obvious from Kilkerrans. I think the sherry amplifies that mulchy, earthy, almost, I don't want to say anything like rotting or anything, but mulch is a good way to describe it. And I think it's from the floor malting. I really do. It's common across all the Springbank brands, and it's certainly there in Glengyle. Beyond that, there's lots of ripe dark fruits, but not all kind of Christmas and spices. There's some brightness to it. It's more like a fig, maybe. Yeah, fig and sweet dates. Toffee, sticky toffee, treacle toffee. There's lots of sweetness here. So this isn't kind of all spice and European sherry. This is sweet, clean sherry. And even kind of quite active bourbon cask. Vibes. I think it's 60-40 ratio. It's juicy though, very juicy on the nose. I'm anticipating this will be the first time that I've tried this in a less busy environment, let's say. Cheers, everyone. Better than I expected. I've had this in lineups. I've had this on the run-up to the release and after it's released. And I think I'm always drawn to the more kind of maybe spirity or more bourbon cask things in the lineup, whether it's all J&A Mitchell products or whether it's mixed in with other things. But sipping this tonight, objectively, this is a beautiful whiskey. It's beautiful. It's well made. It's just fantastic. There is literally nothing negative that you can say about this other than comparing it to its siblings or other batches that's come before. And even then, it kind of dissolves into pettiness when you start to do that. This is objectively just a juicy, ripe, good. And if you're gonna, even non-sherry cask lovers could get on board with this, I think. Passion fruit. Sweet, but a little vibrant too. It's quite velvety. 46% ABV. Very drinkable. A little sour note at the end, a little bit of that funk hanging around, a little bit of that color, that texture, that sense of density that you're actually sipping something from Campbelltown. Wow, Aquavita, yes, that's what I missed this year at the OSWAs. He's talking about Glengyle. Martin Jones is saying, my 2023 is so much paler. Yeah, they were paler, weren't they, Martin? Sugar Kitty, good to see you, Jeff. He says, I can get that bottle in multiple stores here in New Jersey. It's just the price. It's $200. My goodness. I wonder how much that would be for you to ship a couple of bottles from an auction to you in New Jersey. New Jersey, you can ship to New Jersey, I believe, right? It wouldn't be $200. Stick it up the retailers. Jimmy Legg is saying, defending and explaining Springbank and Glengyle is completely unnecessary. Anyone griping about excellence isn't worth any of my time. I think it wasn't, they're not griping about Springbank's excellence. They're griping about the fact that the Online Scotch Whisky Awards ends up celebrating it or drawing attention to it and getting a bit samey and using up spaces that we could maybe shine a light on other things. But when that's the will of the community, Ralphie, me, any one of us can't really stand in the way of it. Whiskey Weekend Drama is saying, just think about the 8-year-old batch 4, the same vibes for me. Okay, so that was one of the dumpy bottle ones, Harrow. I think the 8-year-old batch 4 had much more, obviously it'd be higher ABV, of course, so probably that. This is a softer prospect. This is much more kind of comforting and easy and accessible than any of the cast strength releases. Graham Fraser's saying the hardest OSWA category must be the independent bottlers. So many new and great IBs. I'm going to touch on that in a minute, Graham, and thank you for bringing it up because it's absolutely the case. Greg's Whisky Guide is saying, Kilkerran wise, I do recommend Very Subtle Cadenhead's Enigma Series 15-year-old 2023. It was a belter, wasn't it? A beauty for patient people. I know exactly the one you're talking about. That's my vibe. But sometimes those are the whiskies that you need to kind of sit, and they can charm you, but you need to be in the right frame of mind, and a cleaner palate always helps. Gorm J is saying, visit Springbank for the first time in 2007, and I just fell in love with the distillery because the staff there were so friendly and no nonsense, and they still are to this day. What they've been through over the years, I can't believe how bubbly and friendly all of the people there are. A few exceptions, but even they have got their charm and their warmth and it's just fantastic, right? They just get it right. Talking of Springbank, this long row handful is fabulous. A super dry aquavitae. Good evening, Roy. Andy is in tonight, buddy. Good to have you, my friend. Glad you've got something in the glass too. From next to where you live now, Lowlander is saying, I think aquavitae is talking about you, Petehead. He's talking about. No, I don't think so. Falsgraph is saying, unless Petehead's been whinging about Springbank being in the OSWAs again. Falsgraph is saying, just by the colour, this seems to be really more of a cask wood colour than a wet cask colour. So yes, might get round to this whiskey. I know what you mean about the wet cask thing. It's funny when you speak to people closer to the distilleries and they get into discussions about the wet cask thing, they kind of have a laugh and a chuckle about it. It was quite recent, and I don't think it was about a sherry cask. It was maybe a rum cask or something like that. They were delivered, and through the delivery process and transportation, the casks had been disgorged before shipping, of course, but they had leached a lot of liquid through transportation as the kind of wood had started to dry out. A lot of liquid was leached back into the cask again, and they disgorged it before filling. But they disgorged it and then they left it for a wee while, and then they went back to fill them, and the rum was back in the wood again. It's just, you know, that nobody, I don't think, they don't say, can I send it over with a few litres of your finest left in there. I think that there's just so much liquid in the wood that can leach out depending on conditions and shipping and storage and all of that type of thing. The wet cask is often unavoidable. There are some people that maybe use it cynically to their advantage and stuff, and there's some people that just do what they've always done. I don't know. I wouldn't say that this is off-putting, classes, if that's what you mean. This isn't overly sherried. Despite the dark colour, I think that's probably the takeaway here. I'm quite surprised. This is clearly sherry cask in here, but it's not. If you were anti-sherry cask, you would still be able to enjoy this, I suspect. Despite its dark colour, Brian Stormont is saying the Kilkerran 16 new batch is delicious, but I find the nose quite neutral. Well, I find the nose quite fruity. But there's some kind of odd fruit in the palate. I've been getting passion fruit. What did I say for the nose on this? Dates and fig. This isn't neutral. This isn't neutral. Yeah, I'm sure you know the drill, Brian. If you're struggling, leave it for a while. Maybe a few drops of water can help. But one of the tips, and I'm in the habit of doing it, it's just muscle memory now, I just coat the glass with as much of the liquid as I can, especially when it's a neck pour. And if I'm struggling to get in and out of it, and just get as much of the... So I just get a lovely kind of wood shop note there, kind of treacle and an oily thing. I think I said treacle toffee already. That's there. It's actually quite dangerous, quite very, very easy to drink. Falscraft is saying, yes, that's probably right, but the Thompson Brothers Limburg release this year was really sherry red. This is rather brown. Yeah, I would say this is a wee bit more russet. I know that you're relying a lot on my camera representing that colour properly. Yeah, but I can guarantee in real life I'm not as tanned or as red-faced as this camera suggests as well. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, does it mean the new Kilkerran 16 could have more heavily charred cast than first full sherried ones, Roy? It absolutely could mean that, as I admitted at the start of this, Greg. I'm not really sure. I think it's 640. I should have done my due diligence and checked beforehand. Listen, a couple of housekeeping things before I go on to the next things. I want to talk about independent bottlers. I want to talk about a couple other categories. I'm not going to focus on non-malt tonight. I'm not going to focus on blends tonight, and I'm not going to focus on world whiskies. I'm just going to focus on the kind of Scotch element side of things. It's the vPub and it's me. I hope you'll forgive me for that. But we can get onto those in a wee second. Indies are a good thing to talk about, as Graham Fraser's already touched upon. A lot of you are thinking about the Glasgow release. Now, I have to just say right up front that the Glasgow release was going ahead at this time of year, regardless of what else happened in the whiskey world, right? This is an Aquavitae project. It's my channel. For 8 years of the vPub, I'm releasing a local Glaswegian whiskey that's 8 years old to mark 8 years of the vPub. It's been a project that's been in offing for months and months and months. And it was always designed to be that thing, and it was always designed to be this time of the year, because November is when I celebrate 8 years. That's going ahead and that's coming out. Incidentally, there are 2 nominations in the Online Scotch Whisky Awards for Glasgow this year. There's nothing I can do about that. I'm going to be talking to my community, to my patrons, about how to get that liquid into their hands if they want it, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to do as much as I can, like I do every year on the OSWAs, outside of that project, to try and not talk about things that are nominated. But it's inevitable that I will. And I always will give my honest opinion, incidentally, of whether they're in the OSWAs or not. I think we've established this and we've beaten it to death. You know the policy, you know the drill. But a lot of people are going to be saying, oh, 2 OSWA nominations for Glasgow, and Royce obviously doing a collaborative project with Glasgow. I think that the majority of you know that there is no connection between those 2 things. I am one of over 100 contributors, and I don't have any more votes than they do. I am one of 20 core contributors. I don't have any more votes than they do. When it goes out to public voting, I am one of thousands of votes, and I don't have any more votes than you do. I do stand in front of a camera and talk about whiskey. That's it. I do try to be as earnest as I can be. That's it. It's all I can do. Anyway, the Glasgow bottle is happening. I can't wait. The labels have been delivered now. The product's been bottled. So it's been vatted. It was remarried back into cask. It stayed in, I think it was back in cask for a month. Came up for bottling. It went for bottling. It's now bottled last week. The labels have been delivered now. So in the next few days, the labels will be applied through the labeling machine, or it's maybe a hand labeling process like the Arran, I don't know. In the next week or so, you're going to start hearing announcements from me for Glasgow. Thank you so much for your patience with that one. I can't wait to get my hands on it, but I hope you'll love it as much as any other release that's come out from me. The events for Glasgow Whisky Festival weekend, super excited about that weekend. It's amazing. Most of it's sold out now. Apologies. I've done everything I can to make it to upscale things and expand things and fit in as many people as possible. 90 of us are going to gather in Sloane's in Glasgow on Friday, the 7th. We're doing under the table tasting, and we've got Ardnahoe coming along. We've got Cadenheads coming along. We've got Glengyle coming along. We've got Glen Scotia coming along. I'm going to run out. We've got Adelphi. We've got Decadent Drinks. We've got the Thompson Brothers. I think I've got everyone. I've probably forgot somebody. And they're bringing along dealer's choice, whatever they want to share with everyone. That's going to be an amazing thing. Then we go for dinner after that. Those two things are sold out, but I'm looking forward to welcoming you all in Glasgow. The Glasgow Whisky Festival itself on the Saturday, the highlight, the catalyst, the thing that everything else orbits around. After that, the bus transfer up to the Curry House. In Akbar's in Glasgow, we're all going out for dinner together. It's typically anywhere between 60 and 100 of us going for a curry on a Saturday night. It's great fun. We nailed it at Akbar's last year. It's been chaotic and crazy in the past, but we had set menu, we had everything drilled, we had everything running like a well-oiled machine last year, and everybody was very well looked after at Akbar's. Then on a Sunday, it's my event, the Blind Challenge. It's currently released to patrons only, and it's almost sold out. There's a couple of spaces left. If you're a straggler, if you're a patron and you're in here tonight and you're listening to me and you're in Glasgow for that weekend and you haven't signed up for it, please do it now. I've done everything I can to make it as big as it can be. It's going to be the biggest it's been this year. It's now up at 90 people. Don't hang about, because it's heartbreaking when people don't get in, and there's nothing I can do about it. Once it's gone, it's gone. Table for 105, please, Alistair. That was 2024, wasn't it? The Curry House. 105 people just getting off 2 buses and filling a restaurant. Amazing to see. Just going to all the Barflies events without the festival would be wonderful, Aquaviti, Tim is saying. But the festival is the catalyst. But I get what you're saying. It's built up to be a wonderful thing. And Hoyt is saying, I wish a fraction of the people on YouTube had your transparency and integrity. Hoyt, big hugs to you, my friend. That means a lot to me, because there's some people in the world you just can't convince. And every decision that you make, you try to make the decision based on the right things and doing the right thing and keeping it above board. But you will make mistakes, and you'll be clumsy from time to time, and you'll maybe curry suspicion in certain quarters. There's nothing you can do about it, and I'm becoming a wee bit more thick-skinned as life goes on. Curry Friday, curry Saturday, and Peter's Sunday after the taste in Aquaviti. Whoop, whoop. Yeah, 2 very different curries, but you're a big curry connoisseur, Andy, and I know you'll be looking forward to it. Right, let's get on. Talk about independent bottlings. As Graham Fraser's already touched upon, if we look at the independent bottlers that are nominated this year, I'm not supposed to be talking about what's been nominated. I'm supposed to be talking about what's not been nominated, but just remind ourselves of the 6, because we have 4, well, we have 3 big players, 1 kind of medium-sized player, and 2 much smaller players. It's very, very interesting to me. And there's been a lot of chatter about a particular producer that's made it through, and secretly, I'm very excited about it. Not just because of that producer and who they are, but because we've managed to make a model where small companies with enough impact, enough personality, enough value, enough integrity, enough engagement, enough of a value offering can break through. We've got Cadenheads, massive. Gordon MacPhail, massiver. Signatory Vintage, massiver. And then we've got the Thompson Brothers. And as far as if we talk about that kind of craft, integrity, enthusiast, geek forward, that really horrible kind of hipster word, right? The Thompson Brothers are killing it. And then we've got new kids on the block, Living Souls. And then we've got What Whiskey. Now, if you think about the releases from What Whiskey in a year, is it 18 casks? I don't know. I don't know what casks they put out in a year, but it's very, very small. But they are loved to the people that buy their products. They're loved. And there's been enough people involved in the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. I'm not one of them. I'll be honest. I love What Whiskey. I love Kate. I love Mark. I love the products. I love what they do. I didn't put them forward. But when they were put forward, I was pleased to see it. And then I was surprised to see the support that they gained. And they broke through. If anybody ever has legitimate claim about how these things come about and they want to see it, You want to look under the hood? Not only will I show them exactly the fact that the charts, the graphs, the metrics all show the top 6 from each category make it through, but I'll let them look at the spreadsheets behind it that records the time, the date, the person, the categories, everything, blow by blow, who voted for that, who nominated it, everything. At this, we are simply the messengers for the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. That is who's made it through. Now, as Graham pointed out, quite rightly, Graham Fraser, it's kind of sad that we only have 6. I would have loved to have seen so many others. If we're going to be down at smaller scale ones, I think of Dramore. Slightly bigger, slightly more kind of market-friendly releases from the likes of Little Brown Dog with their blends and their playfulness and things. Would have loved to have seen that getting through as well. I could sit here till the quiz at the end, listing and justifying independent bottlers that I think should be getting a nomination in the OSWAs. Tasty, flavour forward, integrity, value, fantastic whiskies that make you glad to be alive coming from independent bottlers. If you've got access to independent bottlers wherever you are, wherever your market is, it's inevitable that as your whiskey journey progresses, you end up with a huge ratio. Compass Box is an independent bottler. So we're not just talking about the kind of signatory type labels where it's the same kind of label each time, just with a different distillery and dates and things and strength on it. We're speaking about people that actually that go to lengths to brand things like Nectarosity is a nomination this year. Orchard House is back again. Crimson Casks, all from Orchard House. Very, very recognisable, strongly branded products. But they are an independent bottler. And then we've got this independent bottler, which I know has been very, very close to getting through in the past, but we need to talk more about Elixir Distillers. Elixir Distillers are now currently behind the resurrection and rebranding of Tobermory. They're building Portnatroon distillery on Islay. They have the Single Malts of Scotland independent bottling label, fantastic products coming out through that range. They have elements of Islay, wonderful whiskies, usually blended malts. And they have this single malt, Port Askeig. Port Askeig is a Islay single malt whiskey. It's always a single malt. Recently, I've noticed their favoured ABV seems to be 50.5 ABV. That's a good strength. But I am often thrilled and shocked at how good the selection is for Elixir Distillers. I really feel like they do a great job of blurring the lines, a bit like Compass Box, between independent bottling and something that's a bit more appealing to people or with a more mass market mentality, sensibility maybe. That idea that they maybe don't understand what an independent bottler is. Listen, I was into whiskey for 2 or 3 years and I still couldn't really get my head around. I didn't really invest much time in trying to work out what an independent bottler was and what it did. That bottle that I've just poured there is actually one that's been on the shelf for a little while. I've loved this. This is not my first bottle of this. This wasn't cheap. I think it was about £116, but it was so good. And I remember sharing the shoulders of a bottle with a friend once, and the two of us just in silence, just shaking our heads at how good this whiskey was. Wonderful stuff. It's a 15-year-old that's out there right now, about, I think, floating around the £100 mark. I've not picked that one up yet, but this bottle's halfway through now, so I might just be doing that. They do deserve the recognition, but so do another couple of dozen other indie bottlers out there. Is there an argument that at some time in the future, the common sense thing to do is open it up beyond 6 nominations? Ralphie and I are open to considering these things. It's interesting to see how the dynamics change each time. Cheers, everyone. Lovely stuff. Fresh, bright, but somehow comforting and soft and subtle as well. 50% ABV, very, very peaty and smoky. But it's that suggestion of, yes, you know what you're getting here when you stick your nose in it. It's very classic Islay, but there's a subtlety, there's a comfort, there's a warmth, there's a maturity, there's a softness and integration about the nose. Maybe even a balance. Let's have a wee sip. Cheers. Oh, well. Still got vibrance. Still got life. It's still got sweet, cold, cool, fondant vanilla. Actually, there's a bit of richness in here too. There's a little bit of a green element. Slightly herbaceous, grassy. Can't quite put my finger on it at the minute. Maybe like a sage or a tarragon or something. And it loads and loads of earthy, warm, yet cooling on the finish. Islay classic smoke. Fantastic. Jimmy Ledaig is saying, this 8-year-old Glasgow Barfly release is perfect for you, us, and the vPub. I'm very impressed how you've brought that together. Well, yes, it's a perfect fit for me. Look, I'm here in Glasgow. There's local Glasgow distillery. By the way, I need to talk more about Clydeside as well. I need to talk about Clydeside. It should be one that I mention it tonight. My other local Glasgow distillery. They're doing amazing stuff. Do you know their Napier release? I can see it, but it's just outside of reach. So my Lowland whiskies are there. The Napier sherry cask release, I was raving about that when it was £54 a bottle. 6-year-old, exclusively all Oloroso sherry cask. That was the bargain sherry cask. It's priced alongside Arran's Bodiga cask, right? But it's got an age statement on it. It's fully transparent. It's now dropped to 40 quid. £40 for the Clydeside Napier, 6-year-olds, all Oloroso matured. It's not finished. It's full maturation in sherry. Wonderful stuff. The new things that's coming from Clydeside right now is under embargo. I can't talk about it yet until early next week, but early next week, you're all going to see the new thing that's coming out from Clydeside, and it's amazing. And this is going to be a core range product that goes alongside their Stobcross and their Napier. Fantastic. I digress. I got excited there, Jimmy. Sorry. But it's wonderful for me to be able to pick one of my local Glasgow distilleries that have 8-year-old product available, make it available to me. Not just the casks that we've bottled, by the way. They made a bunch of potential casks available to me, and I picked a vatting that worked for me. 8 years of the vPub, it all just makes sense. 55% ABV, unpeated, Glasgow stripped right back to its purest, fruitiest confectionery form, unpeated ex-bourbon. I had a Clydeside distillery tour booked for the Monday after the festival. Oh, good for you, Gary. I'm sure you're going to love it, and the new product will be released by then. Ryan is saying they announced their peated stuff already. No, maybe there was an event tonight. I know they were announcing it tonight. It's maybe out there on social media, but I'm embargoed. Dramface is embargoed until Monday the 13th. So Kyle Taylor is saying, I understand Clydeside has upped their game, Aquavita. I went early 2019 and they were selling undrinkable whiskey. I sense a new 1770 based on your praise. So Clydeside is Clydeside Distillery, doing Clydeside, that's Stobcross Napier, and the new one that's coming out. 1770 is from Glasgow Distillery, which is out in Hillington. And I think both the Glasgow distilleries went too early. It's the truth. That's not the case today. We're not in 2020 anymore. 2019, whenever it was, when Glasgow started, and I think 2020, maybe 2021, when Clydeside started, we're much, much further down the road. You can taste it. And the whiskies coming out of those distilleries today need talked about a lot more. Oops, if not, says Ryan. Oops, indeed. Alan Smith is saying 9-year-old Clydeside then. Aye, maybe, Alan. Wouldn't that be a great thing, wouldn't it? And Jimmy Ledaig is saying it's perfect. Aquavita, well done, sir. Well, hopefully you're going to get a chance to taste it and you can decide how perfect it is when you taste it, buddy. Thank you, Jimmy. What's all this about Orchard House going away? Absolutely. I think this will be the last time that we see Orchard House. It's been replaced. And I think that that's right. I mean, Orchard House has had a good run. I think Orchard House has been on the go since 2021 now. Would that be right? 2021 it came out. So we've had 3 or 4 years of Orchard House. And I think they're going to retire it and bring something else. That's as Compass Box is wont to do, right? That's what they tend to do. They tend to churn their range quite a wee bit. There are lots of great regional independent bottlers all over the world, says Class. He says, I know quite a few German and Dutch ones that I would never expect to be in the OSWAs, though they may deserve it. Well, you remember Van Wees managed to make it in 1 year. Daisy in the Netherlands is saying, evening Rykovite and Barflies, work's done, feet up and dram in hand. Good for you, Daisy. I hope you're comfortable. It's nice to welcome you in here. Doodle Dram is saying, one of my favourite things about Glasgow is the Scotch whisky roaring stags romance busting fact that utter magic can happen in between Arnold Clark's and a tile outlet. That's right. Where Glasgow Distillery are based is the place that you go to refit your bathroom, to buy a new car, or to get a new sofa or tiles or that type of thing. It's kind of one of these estates, and you've just got this kind of really quite grungy distillery making fantastic things out just west of Glasgow. Sean Cosser is saying Clydeside's Cast Strength Limited release is delicious. Hoping for more from them over the next year. Well, you're going to get it. Clydeside are bringing more stuff, and I think it needs to be talked about and celebrated a bit more as well. I'll take it on board to do that myself. It is a local distillery after all. I could spend the rest of the session talking about independent bottlers. Most of you guys, wow, it's quite an interesting acidic, sharp green spike there in that Port Askaig. Still giving up new things. I kind of feel like I'm preaching to the choir a little bit. Not everyone has access to the independent bottles that we do in the UK and Europe, certainly. A bit further afield now these days too. But it does get out there. And I think that there is more opportunity for people to get a hold of it, especially when they're traveling. If you're traveling, I recommend that the stuff that you stash the suitcase with to go back home again should be maybe along the lines of an Indy, right? Not had any Clydeside yet. Need to rectify that. If you're in a sherry mood, go with a Napier. Stobcross is their kind of core, their anchor product, right? It's a kind of mix of bourbon, and I've got a lovely single cask that I poured from a distillery exclusive that was a bourbon cask. That was gorgeous. It was that one that made me realise that Clydeside had arrived. And as the cat's out the bag now, that there's a new one coming next week. Okay, great stuff. Oh, come on, bring that back. There we go. I thought I'd lost my chat there for a second. So I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room. I think I'll do that first, and then I'll leave an uncorking until the last bottle. It's already been mentioned, and it's not there. And there's an argument it should be there, and it's quite surprising that it's not there. But I'll get to that. In the meantime, we need to talk about the other elephant in the room, the same size as the Glengyle elephant in the room, right? Apart from Deanston in the best Scotch category with an 18-year-old bargain banger, you can pick it up sub £90 for their 18-year-old. There is nothing this year apart from that from CVH Spirits. That means there's no Bunnahabhain in the OSWAs, the Only Scotch Whisky Awards, anywhere. Not in distillery, not in products, best value, best Scotch. We're talking about the product that won best Scotch whisky in 2024. Bunnahabhain 12 Cast Strength. This was the winner last year. And this was a bottle that was brought along to the blind challenge from Ellen. And Ellen came all the way from Nepal to share this whisky with us. And she never took it back with her again, and it ended up with me. Anybody that's bringing anything to a bottle share on Sunday, they have to take their bottles away with them, if there's any left. So a wee bit this. This is a 2023 release, which is one of the better ones. The first one that came out, I think it was 2021, I think. It was a wee bit sharp. I never gelled with it. But Bunnahabhain was not nominated. Tobermory, responsible for Ledaig, was also not nominated. This is their Cask Strength Edition, Hebridean Moon. Now this is age dated, this product. This is basically the Ledaig 10-year-old in cask strength form. 58.8% ABV, aged 10 years, bourbon cask matured, cask strength. I mean, I'm all over it. I'm all over it. And yet look at how little I've taken out of the top. The first thing I'm going to talk about is that the Bunnahabhain 12 cask strength was a wee bit salty on price when it was launched, and it's got saltier each release since. If you want to pick up the 2025 release, there was no release in 2024. Ironic, because that's the year that 12 cask strength won it in the OSWAs, but that's obviously past releases. There was no release in 2024. They had a 21-year-old instead, very expensive. But the 12-year-old is back in 2025, and it's the most expensive ever, £90. It's too high. Personal opinion. This Hebridean Moon, it might be cheaper now. Is it still even available for sale? Let's go Ledaig Hebridean. It's dropped a little bit in price. There are some places that have got it a wee bit cheaper, but it's still sitting up about the £80 to £85 mark. Still a bit pricey in my mind. If you've got the standard 10-year-old out there at 40 quid, 42 quid, and a cask strength version, all from bourbon casks, is double, you've missed that's wrong. You've missed it. It's a misplaced product. The reason I have not taken much more out of that bottle is nothing to do with that. It's not a protest thing. It's not only misjudged the price point, but it's come out at a time when the choice and the variety, as the OSWAs is demonstrating in 2025, is massive. If that product was out there at £55, £60, don't tell me you can't do it at that price, because we know you can. If it was out there at £60 mark, £65 even, then it'd be priced alongside the kind of new wave distillery cask strengths, the Lochleys, the Ardnamurchans, the Raasay that I've sipped tonight. If it was priced at that point, yeah, you've got a 10-year age statement on it. You're taking it all from bourbon casks. It's a massive outturn. CVH have made a mistake, and they're making a mistake by increasing the price of the exciting stuff that they need the geeks to talk about and shout about every time it's released. It's a little bit tone deaf. Now, they're not the worst offenders, but forever, if you go to a distillery exclusive, it's pricey. It's certainly from Bunnahabhain, it's very, very pricey. If you go for anything that's a bit exclusive, a little bit mature, a little bit special, the exclusivity tax seems to be excessively high to me. Now, that's just my opinion. It's just me. But I think this is having an effect, much in the same way a Halo bottle will have a very positive effect about all the branding things that come underneath it. You've got the same problem with, especially when you're shifting your target. If you're going for more expensive, you're losing the core group of fans. And we start to disconnect a wee bit. And sometimes that's a subconscious thing. You're in danger of these new products, these new brands, whether it's a blend, whether it's a new distillery, an independent distillery, it doesn't matter what it is, these new exciting things coming along, constantly taking the shine away from your brand, exactly at the time that you're already pricing yourself out of the space anyway. I think it's been a bit clumsy, the releases from them. Now, as the OSWAs, it's just a tiny sliver of a snapshot. It's not reasonable to use such a small sample as any kind of reading. It's, like I say, it's a letterbox view of whiskey, really, the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. But I offer that up to you as a community as a reason for us only seeing the accessible, affordable CVH spirits in the release. Glenn Duncan is saying, as usual, work calls. We'll catch up the vPub on replay for what it's worth. I love the Indies. Signature Vintage and John Gordon McPhail. A special shout out to Single Malts of Scotland, and good night to all Barflies. Actually, good morning to Glenn Duncan down in Australia. Thanks for dropping in, Glenn. Tom is saying, Whiskey Wine Trails, Tom. He's saying Ledaig 18 under 150 here in the US should have been a shoe-in. Just too much competition. Well, Ledaig 18 has appeared in the OSWAs in the past. It has been celebrated. And if it's that price everywhere, you know, arguably that's pretty decent. But I'd still say that's a wee bit more expensive than it is here. I've seen Ledaig 18 appearing regularly for under £100. Cracking value compared to its peers at 18. Here we go. At least we have Living Souls 1991, says Debangsu. Debangsu, that's the first time I've mentioned. I've welcomed you in. I hope I'm pronouncing your name somewhere close. Debangsu. So the 1991 46.3% ABV blended Scotch whisky, famously, there is a kind of nod to it. The general belief is that it's Ledaig, 18-year-old Ledaig, that's had a scoosh accidentally of grain whisky, 3-year-old grain whisky added. So it has to be sold as a blended Scotch whisky. But you can see the Living Souls doing very, very well on the back of that. The OSWA nominations there for Living Souls is very much on the back of products like that. They're very affordable 40-year-old releases as well. They're fantastic examples of, they've done fantastic blends. The 15-year-old is one of my favourites. I've got a gorgeous wee 10-year-old Living Souls over there on the go right now. They've been one of these producers that have stepped forward, bringing us good stuff. And there's a kind of smashing of the categories there, right? Ledaig and blends and independent bottlers. Andy Hells is saying the Ledaig 18 is better value than the Hebridean Moon and tasting option, in our opinion. Yeah, I mean, subjectivity aside, you know, even if 50% of people are going to prefer the Hebridean Moon, 50% are going to prefer the Ledaig 18. You know, it's just clumsy pricing. It really is. Lolander is saying, new wave whiskey, which distillery would you consider to be like Depeche Mode? That's right. Falscraft is saying, looking at the way alcohol consumption is developing in the world right now, distilleries may soon lose touch of exclusivity for a decade or so. Yeah, it's a challenging time for everyone, especially the younger generation who are kind of not connecting with alcohol as much. And what's the industry doing? The same as it did 50 years ago. Oh, we're struggling a bit. Yeah, let's get Willem Dafoe in. He'll connect us with the younger generation. Oh, what about Harrison Ford? What about Bentley? What about Aston Martin? What about all this stuffy things? Nothing stuffy about Harrison Ford or Willem Dafoe, but they're hardly going to be connecting with the relatability. Seems to be just. I don't know how these things come about. I don't know how these things are chosen. I'm a fan of all of the things I've just mentioned, but it does feel out of reach. It doesn't feel like I can connect anymore with any of those things because of those. Anyway, it's a complete digression. Fernando is saying, Aquaviti, totally agree with you. The Bunnahabhain 12 cask strength is sold here at an excessively high price, almost $220 US, £180, pure retailer's speculation. And he's got some angry emoji there as well. I get that. That's horrendous. It really is, Fernando. Stevie O is saying, Bunnahabhain 12 cask strength, yes, too dear, Roy. And Jimmy Legg is saying, only Jeff Goldblum connects with the youth of the world. There are older people that do manage to connect with youth, right? Just it is a thing. I don't think Willem Dafoe or Harrison Ford are those guys, but who am I to know? Anyway, let's have a wee toot on this Bunnahabhain 12 cask strength. More sherry on the nose than that Kilkerran I was having earlier. And by that, I mean traditional sherry. So we've got the spice, we've got the Christmas cake vibes, and we've got the dried, rich, booze-soaked dried fruits. Some wood spice and oak. Something a wee bit creamy is quite nice. Some kind of jam marmalade fruit preserve thing. Concentrated. And a kind of worn leather vibes. We'll go with that. Not old, but maybe polished leather. Maybe that's better. Maybe kind of treated leather. Something like that. Cheers. It's just good though. It's bloody good. It's bloody good. It's rich. It's spiced. It's lovely dryness where the Kilkerran was clean and sweet. There's a nice kind of oaky, woody, dry crispness to this on the finish, but a bite, you can really feel it on the palate. The ABV's helping, certainly, but there's going to be some European oak in here, I'm pretty sure. Certainly that's the feeling. Drier. Alan Smith is saying, Lowlander, not sure you enjoyed the silence from Aquavita to your question. What was it? Did he ask a question? Was I supposed to respond to it? I think he was just making a joke, was he not? Was that not the Depeche Mode comment or something like that? Enjoyed the silence. I'm just too slow. Alan Smith, well done. Well done. Kyle Taylor is saying, to be honest, Nick Offerman has brought people into whiskey. Hard to find a holy but not unlikable person, but Diageo stumbled upon him. He came to them. That was an organic thing. He loved Lagavulin. Parks and Recreation, it's a thing. Donner Pass Whiskies bought me a dram. Thank you so much, Tim. He said, my dream Ledaig is a 16. The bourbon cask they put in sherry for 2 years to make the 18, but give us the 16 at 48%. I love the 10, and I want that at 16. That's a good shout. That's a very good shout, Tim. I would be into that as well. 16 is my favourite age in Scotch whisky. So many favourites over the years have been 16 years old. That'd be an amazing thing to do, right? Cheers, Tim. Lowlander's having a laugh. Andy Hills is saying, thought I'd finished my long handful and added the Glen Scotia 12 to it. Wow, that's not bad. A happy accident. Blending in the glass. Nothing like it, buddy. Thank you, Tim, for your dram. Thank you so much. All right, there's one more to talk to. I'm at the 2-hour mark. Then we'll get the quiz on the go. We've dealt with the two elephants in the room that was Glengyle, and of course, CVH Spirits, Bunnahabhain, Tobermory. Deanston did make it through, but there's nothing there in the distillery. Still, it's good to see a Deanston in the mix. But here's one that's enjoyed nominations in the past, but somehow a few people, more than a few, are surprised that there's nothing in there from Billy Walker this year. No GlenAllachies have been in the past. We've had the 12 for the value. We've had the 10-year-old cask strength and the best Scotch. There have been GlenAllachies celebrated in the past, including the distillery itself. Nothing in 2025. And I think that's a wee bit of shame because Billy Walker's spirit now is mature and available for us to sip at a reasonable age statement. 5, 6, that type of years. And it's been out there for a wee while now, but it's not really the GlenAllachie. The GlenAllachie is still, for me, a story of cask. Almost every GlenAllachie you pick up is cask, 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 cask. When are we going to see some spirit purity coming back through there? I know that Billy Walker has been around there longer than I can even imagine. And for me to even consider critiquing anything that he does is really quite impolite, to say the very, very least. However, this is my feeling. It's got a lot to do with the spirit that they inherited, but there's spirit now available from Billy that's his own liquid. This is one of them. Makeltor. 5-year-old age statement on there, 50% ABV, all the stats that we like to see, and look at it right up front, no colour added, non-chill filtered. This is the turbo expression. Look at that ppm, malts, phenols, parts per million, 72. That's based on the grain, not what's in the bottle. What's in the bottle, we can tell the peatiness from our palates, our enjoyment with it, right? Not enough producers measure the ppm in the end liquid. Gorgeous, rich, dark colour on this one. And I would like to thank, I think it was Danny Keenan that pointed out a source for this for me. I got this from, I think it was Woodwinters, is that what they're called? I missed this one when it was out. But thanks to the community, my goodness, I was able to pick one up. See what it says here. Is this text too small for me to read? It's got nose and palate here. I'm not going to read any of that. So there's been a few releases of Mikotor. They had 3 at the same time, didn't they? They had the original, they had the Chinkapin one, and the Sherry one, was it? But the Turbo was the one where everything was amped up, especially phenols. The ABV stayed at 50%. Some of the other ones at 48 or 50% ABV. The Turbo comes out at 50. Oh, wow. Do you know, there's a very, very specific... So there's peat and smoke in this, but when I stuck my nose in, immediately there's something in Scotland called a clooty dumpling. It's a steamed pudding that you make, and you literally wrap it in a cloth, and you bind it together to make it. There's lots of fruit and spices in there. It's very, very dense. One slice of it and you're full until lunchtime, right? You don't need much of it. It's basically a bit like a fruit slice, but much more dense and heavy and weighty. So it's really like a smoked version of that, very like that. Lots of sour, dark fruit. Lots of bready, fermenty notes like fermenting dough or pastry. Sponge from a trifle booze-soaked sponge. Some kind of wine, like port and dark, rich wines. A crispness. There's quite a lot. You wouldn't say that this is muted, not in the rose. This is a neck pour as well. This is first approach to this one. This is big. This is a big, feels like a big, weighty whiskey. This is the first time I've tried the Turbo, by the way. Wow. Going to leave that for a second, come into the chat. That's quite a proposition, I think. Turbo by name, Turbo by nature, right? Peter Lee's bought me a very generous dram. Peter, thank you so much. And he's saying, because of you, we are going, don't blame me for anything, we are going down to London next week to meet up, oh, amazing, to meet up with Dave Barnes, Alistair McPhail, Andrew Jarger, and Flora. Because of you, we have so many whiskey friends, and because of you, my life is so much fuller. Thank you, Peter. That's a wonderful sentiment. I'm very, very glad you appreciate it as much as we all do, because I think it's amazing. The amount of people that we meet in this community that are genuine, good, fantastic, lovable, welcoming people is just insane. And Callum Craigie is celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 49 months. We had a Meikle Tour Dunfermline whiskey tonight. Fantastic. I wonder how it went. It would have been this one as well. Callum, how did you get on with it? Did you enjoy it? Trevor is asking where Peter's going to be in London. And Graham Walt's saying, I like a Christmas pudding. It is like a Christmas pudding, but it's a bit more squidgy, more moist, more doughy, more kind of, yeah. But clooty dumpling, you can still buy it, Scottish dumpling, clooty dumpling we call it. I make a clooty dumpling every Hogmanay, says Alistair McPhail. Do you do it in a tea towel as well? Lynn's dad makes it too. It's pretty simple to make, I think, once you learn how to do it. Maybe it's a skill I need to learn from Lynn's dad. I would love to get a bottle of the Turbo, but it would cost me €150. Here in Germany, says Anthony Lambert, online very rare. I can't bring myself to spend that much on a very young dram. The sherry one is lovely. Don't let the age be the thing that puts you off. If you really want the thing, don't let the age be part of the decision making. However, €150 is far too much. I paid 60, I think, 65 maybe. Grain of Malt is saying enjoy, and Pedro is saying amazing. Peter, Pedro, it was so cool to see you recently, buddy. Nice to see you in here again tonight, all the way from Brazil. And James is saying, even if Mikel Torre isn't quite there for some folks, it shows Billy's trajectory, and that excites me, to be honest. It was great to meet him to discuss the direction. Okay, let's have a wee go again. Yeah, some oak, spice, and wood notes coming in too, amongst all those other things. For a 5-year-old whiskey, we've got amazing complexity on the nose, a richness and a boldness, almost like a little bit of wood stain coming in now. Like, you know, that's not, I don't know what that kind of solvent-based wood stain is. Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. Spice as well, cinnamon. Okay, I could nose this for ages. It's pretty dense. It's very dense. Okay. Okay. This will mark my 20th year of sipping from a Glencairn, loving it. And I'm sipping continually, and I think this is the thing about the OSWAs as well. This is this weird thing. This is a Scotch whiskey. This isn't a world whiskey. This isn't some crazy thing from Asia, the Americas, or Europe or somewhere. This is a Scotch whiskey created in modern times that tastes like nothing else that exists. This is completely unique. I don't know where to start. I need to go in again. It's tasting more industrial in vibes than it did on the nose. Heavy, it's very dense. Heavy on licorice, strawberry laces, kind of dark fruit confectionery, boiled sweets, blackcurrant, that direction. But then we've also got this kind of, and it's like the wood stain side of things, and it's not an off note, it's not solvent, but it's something oily, it's something grungy, it's something dark. I think the nose on this is much more complex than the palate. Yeah, the palate's like a sweet confectionery fruit thing coming at you with this edge, this kind of thinner, sharper edge of, it's not solvent, but it's like an, do you know, it's like a bitter honey. That's closer. That's closer. Let's go with that. Let's try again. Like a dark, one of those really dark, expensive honeys that you wonder why you bought, and you're trying to work out where you're going to use it. And you know, those kind of waxy honeys that they don't, you don't scoop them, you literally scratch them and tear them apart with a spoon. One of those. That's leading me towards a kind of beeswax vibe. The smoke in this is like a, they call it the turbo, and I think it's got a lot to do with the smoke in this. But the smoke in this is like just the base note. It's the kind of foundation to it all, but it's deep. It's all kind of really kind of well integrated. On the nose, it was flashes of lots of different things, but on the palate, you've got just these big chunks of flavor. Wow. It's one of these Moorish whiskies, but it's not Moorish in the traditional sense where it's kind of drying and you say, oh, I'll go back in for more or whatever. It's Moorish because it's so oddly intriguing. you kind of want to go back. It's a wee bit like a long row or a Ben Nevis, maybe certain Ben Romax, you know, those kind of funky style, weirdly, slightly grungy, grimy, industrial. It's got a sweetness to it, though. That confectionery is definitely there. Falsgraph is saying I have to leave now. A package to deliver in the village, then I must go to sleep. Good night, everyone. You're an hour ahead of us, Falsgraph. You never need to say goodbye, or you never need to give reasons, buddy. I'm just so glad that you joined us tonight, class, and I'll see you soon, my friend. Graham Fraser has bought me a dram to say, really looking forward to seeing lots of barfly friends in Scotland at the Glasgow Whisky Club in Campbelltown, Isla, Glasgow, and Edinburgh over the next 2 months. Fantastic. I think you mean the Glasgow Whisky Festival, right? Fantastic, buddy. Looking forward to you being a part of all of it too. Wonderful stuff. Again, what I was saying, so Moorish. When I first opened it, I poured 3 to 4 drams. It is Moorish. Look at that. It's almost gone. Dangerous even. Klitz is saying, sounds very similar to my experience of last year's batch. Very interesting dram, but actually not something I need all the time. So I'm okay passing by it this year. I can't compare it, Klitz. You're absolutely spot on, though. I understand the kind of the reckoning there. But I didn't get, I got all 3 of the other Michael Tors that came out. But this is the first time I've bought the Turbo. My first vPub with glasses on, says Kyle Taylor. It's wild to watch Roy in HD, 45 years young, and readers should have seen it coming. No pun intended, Kyle. Listen, it comes to us all. When I started the channel 8 years ago, I didn't wear glasses permanently. And now I do. Yeah, it comes to us all, buddy. We should have seen it coming. Here's to your bespectacled HD vision, Kyle. Cheers. Michael Tor Turbo didn't get nominated in the OSWAs this year. Nothing from Billy Walker, GlenAllachie did. And I was going to give my reasons why I think that is. And I sip that and it turns all of it, the justification on its head. I don't think I know this enough to put it forward as a suggestion, a nomination, to vote for it yet. But I have been, I think with the Turbo, I was expecting more of what I've experienced with the Michael Tors I've already enjoyed. But there's something distinctly different about that whiskey. It's very reminiscent of the kind of layers and depth and density of flavour that we're getting from a lot of distilleries that are making much, much, much smaller volumes than they are at GlenAllachie. It's a very good whiskey. Very interesting whiskey. Very interesting. Okay. My takeaway for the OSWAs in 2025, and everything I've shown you about the average pricing, about the spread of the nominations, and about how the nominations are concentrated on more, is that we have to, as a community, be very, very wary of the fact that when we are faced with so much diversity, so much choice, so many different directions to take our purchasing, the human in us needs to start simplifying. Favoritism kicks in. Favoritism and reliable uniformity is more appealing than promiscuity when it comes to chasing flavour. We start to dial in on our favourites. We maybe become a wee bit lazier. We become a wee bit less playful. And I think that might be happening. I'm not talking about echo chamber dynamics or nonsense like that. I'm speaking about just getting a bit too comfortable. I think we need to always be like this. I get it. It's very, very difficult. It's even difficult for me. But I think that the OSWAs are there to not represent, but to a certain extent reflect some of the dynamics that's happening in our communities. I think we're finding our favourites, and I think we run the risk of focusing on our favourites and missing out on wonderful new things that might come along. And if you need examples of that happening, look at the online Scotch Whisky Awards. And it'll be interesting to see how the stats, the survey plays out, and how the People's Choice top 10 plays out in 2025 as well. Very generous dram has just popped in from my pal Arran in San Francisco. Buddy, you're coming over to Glasgow again, aren't you, buddy? Thank you very much for your generous dram. Just a wee whiskey glass to say cheers. Thank you, Arran. What am I pouring? What am I raising? It's the Arran 18. Thank you, buddy. That's not on purpose. Arran for Arran. Cheers, buddy. Thank you for the dram. Hope to see you in Glasgow, fella. Kyle Taylor is saying, heart of the heart aquavite for the turbo. Yeah, so really tight cuts. Is that what's going on here? I feel like they've gone into the tails a wee bit. The profile almost behaves like that. Anthony Lambert is saying, if I take off my glasses while drinking whiskey these days, it's like a free blind tasting. Oh dear, it's not something to laugh about, and yes, it is. We have to laugh about it. Andy Hills is saying, looks like we're going to be seeing many barflies in the weeks preceding and following Glasgow Whisky Festival in the wee tune. Fabulous. I love this community and the friendships that have arisen from it. Hear. More of that, Andy. I hope you can put up with the hospitality you're going to have to extend now that you're living where you are. James is saying the first batch of the turbo was only 5 casks, hence being as rare as hen's teeth. The heart of the cut. Not sure how big this second batch is, but hence the ppm and uniqueness. I would say it's been pretty hard to track down, but that's been out. It's been out for a wee while now, a few weeks, and I picked it up last week. I think it was Danny Keenan that recommended Woodwinters that still had some in stock, and at retail as well. Peter is saying, time for the quiz. I'm getting tired. Peter, Frank's getting very kind of. Do you need a wee massage, big guy? Do you need a cuddle? Do you need some Michael Tor Turbo? You're getting a bit grumpy in your old age. It's the vPub. Slow down, fella. The quiz is coming and you need to wait for me to fix it tonight before we can go as well. I find this vPub more interesting than the OSWAs itself at Aquavite. Who missed out and why? Thank you very much, Roy. You can come back again. Thank you for being nice to me. And Matt Bishop is in as well, my pal Matt. Whiskey Games, he's in Aquavite's Edinburgh Whisky Festival at Murrayfield on Saturday. Should be good. Are we going to see you in Glasgow in a few weeks' time, though, Matt? I hope so, buddy. It's nice to see your face around these things. Okay, I'm going to try to talk to you while I fix the quiz that I should have had going earlier. I'll cheat a wee bit. I won't do everything like I normally would. And I'll try not to make a mess of it since I'm fixing it literally in front of it. So I've prepared all the questions, but the order, I can't make it work as a quiz until I tidy it up. Time me. It should take me about 2 to 2.5 minutes, and I'll try and speak to you as I go. Here we go. It's a bit annoying that I did this. The reason for the distraction was, of course, the football tonight. I thought I had everything done, but I still had this to do. Of course I did. But we'll get through it. We'll make it work. We always make it work. It's the vPub, and it's live, and occasionally there are spinning plates that are dropped, bloopers, various things. Just don't want to make a mess of this because that would make it worse. Not only have we're on question 4 already, so we're doing quite well. I've had to do this in the past before. And you've been okay with it. Please be patient with me. There we go. That should work. That should work. More than halfway now. Your quiz will be ready shortly. This is terrible viewing. Chapter markers underneath if you want to skip this bit and you're picking it up on the replay. Just don't want to make a mess of it, right? Almost there. I mean, it would have been better me just doing this and going late by a couple of minutes than having to do it in front of you, but needs must. We're here now. Okay, second from last question, ready to go momentarily. It won't be quite as slick as usual, but that's fine. I should have had this all prepped out. That's such a shame. Oh, at least I did that, so that's a good thing. We're done. So now I need to upload it. And apologies for you just 200 and odd of you just sitting there watching me while I did that. I'm really, really sorry, but it's fixed now. So let's see if I can bring it in now. And thank you for your patience. I can't believe I'm not even blushing at that mess. That happens from time to time. Oh no, I don't want that to happen. No, it doesn't find it, so will I just do a screen share instead? I could try to do that. I can't find it, so I'll have to do a screen share. So annoying. So annoying. Let's do it. Let's bring the chat over here so I can still speak to you. And I'll do a screen share instead. Nearly there. Can you see? Yeah, that works. Good. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you for your patience. We are now ready for the quiz at the end. After all that messing about, I've now managed to format the quiz in a way that we can actually use it as a quiz, and I can share it with you. Thank you for your extra. It felt a wee bit like the additional minutes added on at the end of the Scotland game at the start of tonight's proceedings. But in the end, it worked out really well for us. I can't wait to just go back and enjoy that all over again. I'm going to watch the highlights. I've watched, there were very, very few highlights in the first, I would say, 70 minutes of the game. How amazing that it worked out like that. Quite incredible. Okay, everyone, thank you for hanging about. Thank you. I can see Billy Abbott, and that's amazing. vPub quiz at the end, always multiple choice. I know that for the majority of you, you know the drill by now, and I don't need to go through it every week, but I'm always a wee bit mindful of the fact that there's new folk in. Help them if there is new folk in. Good luck, everyone. Here we go. Question 1. Which of the following distilleries grow, harvest, and process, but do not malt their own barley? Is it Kilchoman, Lochlee, or Daftmill? Which of the following distilleries grow, harvest, and process, but do not malt their own barley? Kilchoman, Lochlee, or Daftmill? No, I'm not going to watch the whole game, Lowlander. But I'm going to enjoy watching the highlights, right? It's one of those ones where the highlights are going to be much better than watching the game. 3 points for Scotland makes it all worth it. Take your time, big guy. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Joe. Looking forward to seeing you in Glasgow weekend as well. Peter is saying, great late minute adjustments. Well done. Thank you, Frank. I thought you'd be coming impatient and going off to bed. Daniel Key is saying, but it's the 10th of October. It is. We're in the 10th of October, Daniel. Good to see you, big guy. I hope you're keeping well. The following distilleries, we're all going for C here for Daffmill. They grow, harvest and process their own barley, but they do not malt. Kilchoman grow, harvest and process their own barley, but they do malt. Lochleigh grows, harvest and processes their own barley. They occasionally experiment with malting, but you wouldn't suggest there's anything other than a kind of micro project for them. I can tell you that indeed you're absolutely spot on. C for Daffmill is right, but Where's Roy also went for B, and he's spot on as well. Lochleigh and Daffmill are both acceptable answers as we go into question 2. Which of these blends is the third most popular after Johnnie Walker and Ballantine's when measured in sales by volume? Blended whiskies, we're looking for the third most popular behind the all-conquering Johnnie Walker and Ballantine's. What comes in at number 3? Is it A, Dewar's, B, Grant's, or C, Chivas Regal? You might notice that there's a flicker as I change from slide to slide. It's all a wee bit bodged and pasting it together to make it work. Daniel Key is asking worldwide or UK? No, I'm speaking worldwide. These are worldwide. Dewar's is the third best-selling blend. Grant's is the third best-selling. That's difficult to say. Grant's is the third best-selling blend, or Chivas Regal is the third best-selling blend. Daniel Key is going with C anyways. James Morgan is always available. C is saying. C, says Ian Williamson, question mark, but not sure about this one. A, but maybe C, says Tim Donnerpass. Listen, the vast majority of, you've got this nailed. You know exactly what's going on here. And Dewar's and Grant's are both big, massive global sellers. But number 3 position is absolutely Chivas Regal. Well done, everybody. Well done. Question 3. Old Pulteney is sold as the Maritime Malt. That is today. But once upon a time, it was known as what? Before it was... and this wasn't necessarily a marketing strap. It was more kind of a case of what it became known as. Today it's the Maritime Malt, but once upon a time it was A, a taste of the sea, B, the Highland Nectar, or C, the Manthania of the North. Old Pulteney, the Maritime Malt, was once upon a time A, a taste of the sea, B, the Highland Nectar, or C, the Manthania of the North. Sean Holtgrave is a barfly, a gold barfly. Bought me a wee dram and he's saying my Aquaviti Ardnaho finally arrived. Sean, I feel like that might be the first time, I've mentioned your name on a vPub. It's wonderful to have you here. It's wonderful to have your support as a barfly. And it's wonderful to have you picking up the Ardnaho. Sean, if you're predisposed to open that thing and try it, and you're planning to do that just now, let us know what you think of it. Old Pulteney, Maritime Malt. Is it a taste of the sea, the Highland Nectar, or the Manthania of the North? Oh my goodness. We need to be following. There's no Mark Watton tonight. Maybe, is Billy Abbott still in? We maybe need to be following the Billy Abbotts on this one, because I think this might be an unintentional banana skin. Hoyt is saying C is hilarious. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying I'm sorry, but it's C. James Morgan is saying change to C then. What's Billy Abbott is answering C. And then Fernando saying, okay, changing to C then. C switch, C then. Jimmy Jazz is saying, too late. A principled man in our Jimmy Jazz, right? But no, that's not question 3. I thought it would be easy for everyone. Old Pulteney was famously, because of the dry, salty nature of it and the Moorishness, the character of the whiskey in itself, it was famously declared the Manthania of the North. Billy, thank you for being in. I hope that anybody that switched to a C, you're absolutely within your rights to do so. These opening 5 questions are supposed to be relatively easy. Question 4. Which of these distilleries, founded in 1897, was founded based on a falling out between William Grant of Glenfiddich, I should say, and Balvenie, with the companies. So we're looking for a distillery that was founded based on the necessity for whiskey because of a falling out. But if you read the question, I'm basically just asking which of these distilleries was founded in 1897. A. Glenfarclas, B. Glendullan, C. Glenglassaw. And the rest of the question is meant to be a little kind of fun deep dive. This is something I wasn't aware of. I didn't know this story until I picked up the latest Malt Whisky Yearbook. You know, I don't sell things, I don't plug things. But over the years, I mean, my goodness, I've built a channel on this book. I think this is an amazing companion. I love that it exists. (1897), founded based on a fallout between an agreement between a party and Willie Grants of Glenfiddich and Balvenie. It was at A. Glenfarclas, B. Glendullan, or C. Glenglassaw. Absolutely got it nailed. Petehead is saying A is from 1836, C is from 1875. He's absolutely spot on, which means 1897 was, of course, Glendullan. There was a reciprocal agreement that I think it was William Williamson was the name of the man, I don't quite remember now, was going to buy everything that William Grant's made, but through disagreements and things, that didn't last very long, a couple of years at best. Then Balvenie came along and they tried again and it didn't happen. And eventually William Williamson was motivated to go off and found Glendullan. Okay, we move into the picture question. Here we have a picture of a distillery with some repurposed old buildings. But I'm going to ask you, the scene that we're looking at, is it located A? Oh, sorry, it's not location. It's which statement is true about this scene that we're looking at. Is it A, they may release a 10-year-old in 2026? B, it's actually nominated for a 2025 OSWA? Or C, it's located on an island? The distillery that we're looking at, the asshat is there purely because you need to know the answer to 2 things in order to guess it. Well, the distillery that we're looking at in the picture, they can either release a 10-year-old next year, or they're nominated for an OSWA this year, or it's located on an island, which is true. Alistair McPhail is saying, you've got everyone following Billy. Well, not anymore. Billy can wait till the last moment to drop in his answer. And that way, there's a lot more fending for yourself. You can do a Graham Fraser about it all, right? Oh, wow. I thought I was sipping the Miko Tor there. But no, this is really clean. This is me back in the Kilkerran 16. Alistair McPhail is saying, sorry, I picked that one up, didn't I? Billy, I hope you're not feeling the pressure. I hope you're still having fun. Okay, where are we going with this one? Aquavita's shameless self-promotion here. Don't worry about it, Rick. You can promote yourself as much as you like, my friend. Greg is saying, bloody no idea. The angle, humble guess, Holyrood. I can tell you that this is Holyrood. You're absolutely right, Greg, and it is nominated for a 2025 Online Scotch Whisky Award for the first time ever. So there we are at the halfway point. Pedro, Andy Hells, Pete Box, good to see you, Peter, Daisy Vleeland, Rick Johnson, Graham Young, Daniel Key, Fernando, Michael C, they're all pouring, and Ian Williamson, Greg's Whiskey Guide, Dave the Brave. I believe that new bit is a shop that sells my book. So it's not just Rick Johnson that's doing the selfless self-promotion. Let me do a wee bit of promotion for you, Billy. Let's see if I have it. I have a couple of these books, and I need to get one signed, or at least have a wee drawing on it from you or something, Billy. But I've got one of these next to my bed as well. And I did have two more, but at a tenner a throw, these are one of the nicest wee gifts to hand out to people. And I love the accessibility of this book. I love the kind of broad, easy language. I just think it's one of the most succinct whiskey books in existence. If you don't have Billy Abbott's book, I recommend that you add it to the collection. It's a belter. Okay, Billy, saying your £5 is in the post. I'll take it in dram form. How's that? Question 6. The founder of Longmorn, John Duff, is also credited with founding which of these Diageo distilleries? A, Glen Spey, B, GlenAllachie, or C, Glenkeith? There's usually a kind of some clues littered to help you navigate the quiz at the end, even on what would at first seem kind of tricky questions. The founder of Longmorn, famously John Duff, is also credited with founding which of these Diageo distilleries? Billy Abbott is saying, I've just drawn this distillery for the new pack of cards. The pack of cards are here. These are distillery cards. I'm doing a lot of promotion tonight, a lot of selling. I don't sell things. Then I go from the yearbook to Billy Abbott's book to Matt Bishop's cards. So there's a new batch of playing cards coming out, is there? Yeah, I love these. Very, very straightforward, succinct little drawings of all the distilleries. So it's a regular deck of cards. Here we've got Tobermory. Here we've got Best, quite recognisably, obviously, Ben Nevis, fantastic. Then we've got Deanston, the vertical scale of Deanston, just fantastic wee deck of high quality, I have to say, playing cards, with a wee kind of saltire arrangement on the rear. I've seen these for sale in whiskey retailers as well now. Matt is saying I'll have a table at the Glasgow Festival. Oh, you're working the festival this year, you maniac. That's not the right thing to do. The answer I'm looking for this one is GlenAllachie. The founder of Longmorn, John Duff, is also credited with founding GlenAllachie. Did everybody get that? I think the majority of you did. You're knowledgeable whiskey folk. It was a 50-50 in the end because option C is Glenkeith, which is actually owned by Pernod Ricard. That's nothing to do with Diageo. So it was between two, 50-50. All right. Question 7. Ardnahoe is famous for having the longest line arms in Scotland, but just how long are they? We all know that Ardnahoe's line arms are super, super long. How long is the line arms at Ardnahoe? A, around 7.5 metres. B, almost 10 metres. Or C, just short of 12 metres. How many metres are the line arms at Ardnahoe Distillery on Islay? Starts to get tricky. These questions start to get a bit horrible. And it kind of feels like you either know these things or you don't. So you either follow the crowd, follow the knowledgeable folk in the crowd, take a punt, play the game. It should be the case that if you get a 10 out of 10 at the quiz at the end, it's something to genuinely celebrate. I was there a few weeks back, says Ian Williamson. Forgot my tape measure. Billy Abbott checks his photos. Almost there. Okay, A then, says Fernando. Well, however you've got to that is fantastic. I can tell you that, yes, A is correct. It is around 7.5 meters. Well done. Still one of the best views from a still room ever, says Andy Hells. I can't disagree with that, especially when you can see the weather change coming in. Question 8. Which of these Scotch malt distilleries is actually now in production making whiskey, or making new make at least, but not yet included in Ingvar Ron's Malt Whiskey Yearbook? So we're looking for a distillery that's in production, but still waiting for its entry in the yearbook. Must be hard for Ingvar to keep up, really. A. Reivers in the Scottish Borders. B. Drummegar in the Eastern Highlands. Or C. Portnatruin on Islay. Billy Abbott's on 7 out of 7, along with Graham Young, Sugar Kitty, Dave the Brave. Anthony Lambert. Ian Williamson, Graham Fraser, Dave VP, Gorm J, Andy Hills, Pedro, Daniel Key, Daisy Leland, Michael C. My goodness, is this easy? Peter Box on a 7 out of 7. Lots and lots and lots of you still in great shape. Alistair McPhail is in there too. Come on, keep it going. Let's see if we can get this over the line and have some of you getting a 10 out of 10 tonight. I can tell you that with the majority of you seemingly going for B, for Drummegar in the Eastern Highlands, I can tell you that Reivers in the Scottish Borders is not in the Malt Whiskey Yearbook, despite it making whiskey, but it makes single grain whiskey, not single malt. Portnatruin on Islay is not yet in production, which means it's Drummegar in the Eastern Highlands, which just kind of appeared out of the sky for me. It was not on my radar whatsoever. There's a new story recently published on Dramface, so you can go over and read about it there. It's directly connected with the Whiskey Souls company, which is Living Souls, and various other brands. Question 9, everyone. You can see the theme for tonight, based on the Malt Whiskey Yearbook, the new edition that's just out. The 2007 Malt Whiskey Yearbook featured just 2 of these, but the 2026 edition features 69. What are they? So if you go back to the 2007 Malt Whiskey Yearbook, 19 years ago, there were only 2 of these things included. In 2026, there are 69. But what am I talking about? A, new Scotch malt distilleries. B, French malt distilleries. C, distilleries located in Ireland and Northern Ireland. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying Aquaviti. Lost connection for a second, please. What was Q6? Answer, please. Oh, I don't remember now, bud. I don't remember. Will we go back? Will we go back for Greg? GlenAllachie, buddy. GlenAllachie. Don't make a mess of this. Going forward, Roy, be careful. 2007 Malt Whiskey Yearbook featured 2 of these, but the 2026 edition features 69. What are they? A, new Scotch malt distilleries. B, French malt distilleries. C, distilleries in Ireland and Northern Ireland. This is tricky. Even Billy will not be confident about this one. Billy's on 7 for 8. There is a banana skin that's been slipped upon there, but Sugar Kitty is still on an 8. Rick Johnson, Daisy, Debangzu, Graham Fraser, Dave the Brave, Andy Hills, Michael C, Peter Box. Look, there's lots and lots and lots of you on 8 out of 8 still. Pedro is saying C, but purely a guess. This is going to be tricky. There's going to be a lot of attrition with this one. A lot of attrition. I can tell you that the 2007 Malt Whiskey Yearbook had only two French malt distilleries, and now they are counting 69 French malt distilleries. That's with the help of a collaborator and supporter to help Ingvar put that together. But just making malt whiskey in France alone, there's 69 listed in the Malt Whiskey Yearbook. 2007 copy had just 2 in there. Interestingly, when it comes to Irish, located in Ireland and Northern Ireland, the malt whisky yearbook in 2007, they only had Bushmills in there. Middleton obviously wouldn't be considered solely malt production. So yeah, it's 2 French malt distilleries. That takes us into the ass hat at the end. How are we doing? Who's on a 9 out of 9? Let's see who's in good shape for a potential 10. Alistair is still in the running. Alistair McPhail has got a 9 out of 9. So is Rick Johnson. Fantastic. Oh, some attrition. Dave the Brave's on an 8. Bruce Bernard. Good to see you. Bruce is on a 7. Graham Fraser saying, phew, that took a lot of educated guessing. He's still on a 9 out of 9. Well done, Graham. Ian Williamson's on an 8. Hoyt is on a 7. Still really, really high scoring, right? Despite being quite a challenging quiz. Greg's Whiskey Guide is shocked. Billy Abbott. Billy's saying, I told you to ignore me. Andy as well. It says Sugar Kitty. Did I miss Andy Hells? Good stuff. 9 out of 9, mind you. Come on. Let's see if we can get a 10 out of 10. Let's bring on the ass hat at the end. Across their Explorer, Heritage, Warehouse 1 and Travel Retail Series, Glenmurray have famously got a lot of core expressions. But how many? Ranging from non-age stated through to 21 years old do they have? How many core ranges for Glenmurray? It's about the same as A, active lowland Scotch malt distilleries. B, it's about the same as active Scotch malt Glen distilleries. Or C, active island Scotch malt distilleries excluding Islay. It's an ass hat from the past, right? Just woke up, so that doesn't count, says Peahead. I give up, he's saying again. Sugar Kitty. Fantastic. C, please, Roy, says James Morgan. Peathead is also suggesting C. Nicholas is going for C. Lachlan McKenzie is saying C, but he's admitting it's a guess, where there's an air of confidence about the other ones, whereas Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, I'll go for B, period. Donner Pass Whiskey is saying bugger. Graham Fraser is saying C, but I'm guessing. Hoyt is saying C, and Billy Abbott is getting a laugh. What is Billy Abbott up to? Sometimes I feel like I don't get all the comments. He's telling him, yeah, ignore him. Lots and lots of people drawn to C. I have a suspicion that this evening we are going to see at least 1 or 2 10 out of 10s. Let's share the numbers with you. I can tell you there are 25 active lowland Scotch malt distilleries. There are 26 Scotch malt Glen distilleries. And active island Scotch malt distilleries, if we exclude Islay, number 17. And I can tell you that Glenmurray, currently on their website, have 17 core releases. So all those folk that said C are absolutely spot on. I think we've got a healthy dose of 10 out of 10s tonight. Lassie Hjort Otsman, good to see you, Lassie. Good to see you celebrating. He's the first in with his 10 out of 10. Graham Fraser is celebrating a 10. We've got Jimmy on an 8. Well done, Jimmy. Ian Williamson and Dave the Brave both on 9. And Peter on an 8 as well. Angus C's got his pass mark. Congratulating all the 10s. Joe Smith is on an 8, whereas Roy is on an 8. But Andy Hills is saying 10 out of 10. Yeah, Dancer. He's celebrating. Dave VP is saying second one ever. Fantastic. Peter Box is saying 10 out of 10. It's so cool to see people genuinely chuffed that they managed to get a 10. It has to remain a challenge. Congrats to the 10, says Daisy. Maybe she didn't make it this week. She got a 9. Very, very close. I wonder what tripped you up, Daisy. Alistair McPhail is saying 10 out of 10. I'm running around the room swinging my jersey. Damned. Missing the 10, a 9 out of 10. Pissed off, says Greg's Whiskey Guide. And it's so frustrating. That means you got the French distillery question 1 right as well, buddy. And with that, I'm calling it a day, says Frank. Thanks for organising Aquaviti. Nice to have you in right to the end, buddy. Thank you so much, and congratulations on the decent scoring in the quiz. The 10 out of 10 awaits for you another time, buddy, right? Let's bring the the chat back over here and I can start to see and run things properly. Sorry about my distraction tonight. International football was on and I didn't expect the game to be that drab at the beginning and then really exciting at the end. I get caught up. I took my eye off the ball. I didn't focus tonight and I ended up having to fix things at the end. But we always make it work, especially when I've got such a cool community like you guys around me. Listen, I cannot wait for everything that's happening in the weeks ahead. These are super intense, really, really busy, but they're exciting and great fun times. 8 years of the vPub is coming up in November, so the Glasgow release, 8-year-old ex-bourbon, all stripped back, pure Glasgow whiskey is coming out to celebrate that. I can't wait to share that with you. Patrons will always hear first. If you're a patron supporter, you're going to hear about that imminently. All of the events are pretty much sold out now for the Glasgow Whisky Festival weekend. So it's all just a case of kind of building towards that and looking forward to welcoming you all in Glasgow again. It's just going to be, I think, the biggest ever, and I think it's going to be the biggest and the best ever. I can't wait for it. I'm really looking forward to it. But until then, please, wherever you are, whatever you do, know the integrity and the earnest endeavour that's behind the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. Please share it wherever you are. Please talk about it positively. And really, I stand fully with its integrity, with its honesty, with its intention, everything. Go and vote and ask everyone that you know in the whisky realm to vote as well. The more people that get involved, the more of a measure of what's actually happening out there in whisky it becomes. Put in your people's choice, because when it comes to the winner's ceremony at the end, that for me is where the interest is, and I hope it is for you too. I'm looking forward to bringing it all to you at the 1st of November, but there's a few vPubs to go in between times before then. And there's lots of other announcements and things to share with you as well. But until then, until next Thursday, I look forward to hanging out with you all again. I'll raise a wee glass to remind you all that you're very dearly loved. And until then, Slán Siva. Thank you, everyone.